I reckon we're ready to go. Right, it's just after 3 o'clock. Welcome to full council. We've had the first part of the meeting and now we move into the second. Now the live streaming cameras are on, I hope. The microphones are on and there are 2 roving mics. There's Nicola and the one at the back. So let's just get on with it and see where we get to. Because as I say, I envisage quite a long meeting. All right. Apologies for absence. Karen. From the floor, I have Moore, Towns. Anybody else? Yes.
Councillor Purvis was going to an emergency.
Right.
Councillor Foster, sorry. Councillor Foster. Oh, and Councillor Simpson.
Any more? I think that's a lot. Minutes. We have the minutes of the previous meeting on the 2nd of July. Pages 9 to 22. Anything on accuracy or a question on those minutes? Councillor Dale.
Question 9.
Anne?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Councillor Dale. Thank you. Question 9 from Councillor Dale to Councillor Riddle. On page 17. I wouldn't have brought it up, but it is quite an important issue. And it was about the emergency number. And I was informed, if you remind me, that just so everybody's got there, it's the second paragraph. Can I just say that I did send the heading of the from the address of some officers, which included and still included that date, that number on to date, and it's reporting an emergency phone call 0345 600 644 400. So it is still within the county, and I could ask you please, as it's such an important issue, as you remember, the county emergencies didn't call out for a resident of mine, and that's why this needs to be bottomed out. And please, can you make sure that everybody has the correct numbers, and all numbers which have got reporting an emergency is taken off all the letterheads.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. Thank you. When you raised the issue in the meeting, you said that it was a letterhead. You sent me through an email signature. I forwarded that on to our new head of customer service, and she's looked into it, and it is indeed the correct number. And so the correct number, as far as we're aware, is being used everywhere. So if you've got specific examples where it isn't the correct number, but that is the correct process. If there is an emergency, that's the number to use, and when it's out of hours, it gets directed through to the relevant people to be dealt with. Alternatively, you can, I'm sure, call the emergency services. So, thank you.
Can I just respond to that? Because actually in the report you said that if there was any requirement, if there was any requirement to elected members to report an emergency, they would always be advised to call 999. So I think what we need to do is that is what is in you have reported back. So I've still got the paperwork here. I think you need to clarify it because it is so important that it is correct. I'll leave it at that.
Well, can I just seek some clarification about what it is you're asking me to clarify? You've given me a number, we've checked that number, and that is the correct number to use.
And then you also said that what you've said in the report was, Councillor Oliver advised that the 0345 600 6400 number was the general NCC. General NCC, not emergency, general NCC out of hours contact number, and not an emergency telephone number.
And I've just explained that out of hours, that's still the correct number to use, and it gets put through to an emergency control room if it's an emergency. So it is the correct number, and I think rather than going backwards and forwards, perhaps you could sort of pop in and see me next time you're in County Hall, and we can discuss it in detail with Mary Radman, our new head of customer services.
Can I ask you look at the paragraph and come back to everybody with an exact report what you mean?
Anybody else?
Actually, Councillor Dale, I can't because I don't really understand what it is you're asking me. But
an offer has been made for dialogue. I'll leave it at that. Anybody else on the minutes? I don't see anybody. Disclosures of members' interests. I'll kick off. On directors' decisions, it is page 93, item 3. It's the Whittington Neighbourhood Plan. I live there, I know a lot of people there, and I still own land there, so I will not partake in that. Anybody else on disclosure of members' interests? Yes.
Item 14.1, being a director of Arch and the nature of the thing in question. I will withdraw from that one.
Yeah, Councillor Daly.
And same again as Councillor Wearmouth.
Councillor Jackson.
Likewise. Yeah, and the same for me.
And Councillor Reid, likewise the same. Anybody else want to declare?
Chair, sorry, I don't think you asked for approval of the minutes.
Can I have approval of the minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. Anybody else declare of interest? No, I can't see any. So we'll move on to announcements. Right. The sad part of this one is I have to report the death of former civic head of the council, Cathy, a lot of us remember her, Cathy Graham, on the 20th of July 2018. Cathy represented the Cramlington Village electoral division from 2013 to 2017. And also the death of Robin Burley on the 29th of August 2018. He was a former chair and leader of the County Council and a Deputy Lord Lieutenant. A private family funeral will take place and further information will be released in due course regarding the commemoration service to be held at Vindelander. So I'm going to ask in the usual manner that we have a minute's silence to remember these former councillors. Thank you. Further announcements. Northumberland Archives have been awarded Archive Service Accreditation, which is a national standard relating to the management and resourcing and the care of unique collections. They were particularly commended for the range of excellent digital practice, good volunteering opportunities and clear recognition of the need to reach out across a large geographical area. So well done them. Also, the County Council have been awarded the prestigious Ministry of Defence Employer Recognition Gold Award for their support to the Armed Forces and their delivery of the Armed Forces Covenant. And one that came in late today, Northumberland County Council have been shortlisted for Regional Employer of the Year for National Apprenticeship Awards 2018. So well done to all of them. Right. Correspondence. I just have one bit of paper for the usual grant. I have you the Northern Farmer, and there are stories about the links being introduced into Kielder and the severe drought this year. I'll give you it later.
Well, it's so nice to pass them over, Chair. It's very, very nice that rich farmers like to let us poor people know, because you're making a fortune out of this drought. Food's gone up. and right across southeast Northumberland, and I'm sure that your bank balance is getting bigger by the day. Thank you very much, Chair.
I'm sure you said that with your mouth full. Remember, farmers. No more correspondence, so I'm going to go to item 6, which is policing in Northumberland. And I'm going to invite Police Chief Constable Winton Keenan and his I don't know, it's not written down, so I don't know what to say. Andy Huddleston. So we'll have a few words from them both, and then we'll have a few questions at my discretion.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Chair. Look, it's a real privilege to be here, and I mean that because I haven't been here before. I know some of you in the room from various different walks of life, all on the right side of the fence, I'd like to say. But nevertheless, this is an opportunity for me to say, yeah, my name is Winton Keenan. I've got the great privilege of currently being the Chief Councillor of Northumbria Police. And I think the thing I'd like to start with is actually having listened to some of the debates already taken place, makes me recognise actually how out of the loop I am. And I mean that very genuinely with regard to yourselves. So if the council are agreeable, if the chair is agreeable, if the leaders are agreeable, I would like to try and make it that we come here a little bit more often. And I'm not necessarily seeking to give any talk or any chat or any of those sorts of things, but actually just listening to what takes place and what's going on can have a real resonance for us. Because whilst I'm about to say Northumbria Police is a very, very good force, what I will always be able to say is Northumbria is a fantastic place to live and work and visit. And part of the jewel in our crown is Northumberland County. And I say it with a little bit of vested interest because I live up here in Hexham. However, what I think is important for me, I know you've got a busy meeting ahead, but I think it's important to share a couple of things about Northumbria Police. First of all, I would like to genuinely say you are policed by a very good force. You'd expect me to say that, but it isn't just me that says that. The likes of HMIC, the likes of all sorts of other people say that in all the surveys that are there, and in all of the inspections we get. We come out as being good, but we can become better, and we need to become better for those who you represent and those who we live and work amongst. But something about Northumbria is the confidence that our residents, our communities, those who visit, we always have the highest levels of confidence. And that doesn't come by chance. That has come by years and years of investment in the neighbourhood policing approach that we take. And I feel sure some of you, and I may well get questions about this afterwards, and I'll be really open and honest in my answers to you. We're saying, yeah, we're seeing some of that neighbourhood policing deteriorate. We're seeing some of those officers that come to see us because they will, because my officers are very, very passionate about what they do. They really want to police the community the best they can. And when they see the management seeking to use in a slightly different way, where they're extracted from that role, really dealing with the communities, they tend to come and see their council representatives. And I don't actually hold that against them, although it makes life difficult for me sometimes when you come to see me. But that's because they really want to do the very best job they can. The truth is that the world of the policing is becoming more challenging. There is absolutely no doubt that public expectations, those people who you represent, some of you that are here today from the public, but those that you represent, have really high and understandably high expectations of what we can and what we should do for them. You just look at television programs, they have these glass boards about the place when you investigate a murder and detect it in half an hour. I've never seen a glass board in my life, but people think we can do amazing things with technology and everything else. But so too there is an expectation of the immediacy of response that comes from the police, because we've actually had quite a luxury with regard to how we've been able to deliver that in Northumbria in the past, because we've had a significant number of officers behaving in a fantastic way, but we've become expectant of the continuation of that service. And so unfortunately some of those expectations that we have that are there for all the right reasons are becoming ever more difficult to honour. And that's going to increase because the complexity of crime, as you will all know from your own lives, is changing massively. I would suspect, and I won't ask anyone to do this, but if I asked anybody to put their hand up and say, have you been subject of cyber-related criminality, you will probably say yes, and some of you will say no. If I then say, but have you had an email that's come through, not just asking you to give millions to somebody in a foreign country and put in their bank account, but something much smaller from Apple saying, your account has been hacked and we need to get in touch with you, can you please get in touch with us? That's not from Apple, it's from someone seeking your details. So cyber-related criminality and cyber-enabled crime, the pace at which that goes, is really outstripping some of the demand we have, and it's really not catching us out, so we're finding very, very difficult to keep up with it. And something that's closer to home with some of that cyber-related social media type of criminality
even stuff, low-level stuff that starts out by stalking and harassment or some way, or low-level things such as people goading people across social media. There'll be members here, I'm sure, from Ashington, where we've had a recent issue with a young girl where it started out with what could be seen as the usual, awful thing to say, the usual banter across social media, that then led in a confrontation, physical violence, and quite a significant assault. And these are things that, unfortunately, now becoming ever present, that are adding significantly to the demands that my officers face. And that sounds awfully condescending, but I feel quite paternal around my staff, believe it or not, and they're not here to hear this, so it's just really quite good other than Andy. But they're working far harder than they ever have done. Don't get me wrong, I'll be honest with you, I've been a police officer for 33 years. I expect to work hard. The reason I've got grey hairs is because I feel that I have probably worked hard throughout my service at the coalface, which I've been there far longer than I've been in this position. But I'm telling you now, as someone who knows policing, as someone who knows Northumbria, and someone who knows the staff, they are working on behalf of those you represent far harder than they have ever done. And I'm telling you on a personal basis, because I'll always be really open with you, I'll be honest with you all the time, I'll be as open as I possibly can. I'm finding it a challenge now to find the ways that we can balance that which we need to do against the resources we have. Because this isn't, and I'll come on to positive things, but this isn't something about, oh look, please excuse all our ills because we've got no money. But in any organisation, we talk here tongue-in-cheek about some of the people who have businesses, farms, wherever it might be, where things are tight. You know, gosh, you talk about those things that have come to play around just the weather and the environment. You know, I'm used to feeding horses whereby my haylage has gone up exponentially and will continue to do so. And it's very to get hold because that's just how the world is. So too with the demand outstripping the resources you have. So too that's the same in my world. Absolutely the same in my world. And we're having to make some very, very difficult decisions. And part of the reason coming to see you today is to say, the more I understand and the more we understand as an organisation about what your real needs are, and by that your needs I mean your constituents' needs, those who you represent needs, the community of Northumberland's needs, then the better able we will be to find a way of balancing the significant financial cuts we've taken against how we deploy our resources. And that's down to me and some of the more senior management in Northumberland to do, and that's why I'd like to be more open and more exposed to probably in this setting to try and listen to some of the things that you have talked to us about. And just to set in context, I think it's appropriate that I do. But again, setting this in context, remember, we're good. We're very, very good. This is absolutely one of, if not the safest places to live and work in the country. Newcastle Town Centre, which is part of the county that we all live in, not our rural community or none of the conurbations in Northern, but that is one of the safest cities to live, work and visit in the country. And that is far more difficult a place on occasion to be than some of the places in Northumberland. Still have nighttime economy issues in the rural areas and absolutely know that. But please don't lose sight of the fact that this is a very good place for us to be. But since 2010, I've lost £136 million off my budget. And anybody trying to manage the same levels of service, having had £136 million taken away, believe me, it's difficult. That's not an excuse for what we are not now able to do, but it's trying to put in context. If you work with us and if we expose ourselves to you where we understand what the real needs are of those communities and help to put out a message through yourselves to what we can and can't do and why we're thinking of doing things and doing that early, so we don't catch you out with things like, dare I say, the closure of front offices, which I know for rural communities and many other communities that was a big issue, and we didn't really share that in the right way. But if we take you on a journey with us, which I tell you now I'm absolutely intent and desirous of doing, then you'll understand our world better and help us perhaps adjust what we are doing according to what the needs are. And I won't go into the finance position too hugely, but I think what is important for everyone to know as well is this: things that will be affecting those people that you represent and that you expect to hear something about from me. I'm telling you now, recorded crime has uplifted exponentially over the last few years. We are now recording far more crime than ever we did, to the point where actually, if we were to go back 10 years, we're hundreds of percent more. In actual fact, the last over 12 months, look, Northumberland in particular, because you don't know about the whole force, your recorded crime has gone up by 11% year to date over the last 12 months. Some of that, I assure you, and I'm looking you in the eye to tell you this, some of that is due to the better recording practices we now adopt. We are much more aware of what we should be recording, how we should be recording, when we should be recording it. We take things much more at face value, as we should, with regard to recording that criminality. And And some of that, the increased confidence that we now have in people to come forward in the knowledge that they will be believed, has undoubtedly led to an increase in recorded crime. However, I'm being really straight with you to say there is an actual uplift in some types of criminality across Northumbria. And I would never mask that from you. But please do not think that the significant increase that we're seeing is actually a direct representation of the uplift of all crime. If I was to ask any of you now, and please just think of this in your own head, but if I say, do you feel any less safe walking outside of County Hall into Morpeth to do your shopping this afternoon as you did 5 years ago? You will probably say no. You will say the crime has changed subtly in some other ways, but you'll probably still be feeling the same things. And I'll tell you, if there was 300% increase in crime, believe me, you'd be feeling it out there. It's not, but there are some subtle areas that crime has increased. Burglary is one area where crime has increased, and burglary is a good barometer because we haven't really changed or tinkered about with how we record that. We've changed the way we record less serious violence, whereby that's seen a huge increase. But that's because of things like Facebook, things like social media, where before things would be threatened and not done, they wouldn't necessarily be recorded as a crime. They are now, which is why we see violent crime, huge increase. It's not actually a real increase in crime to change in recording. But some of those issues have changed. I'm going to give you a little bit of good news, though, now. With regard to Northumberland, you know, rest assured, actually you buck the trend. Across the whole county, you buck the trend with regard to burglary, because your burglary rates are reducing. So please have some confidence. But across the rest of my force area, they're actually increasing. And please, the reason I've got this is because I'm very conscious that the chair told me that you have a long meeting, so I'm keeping myself, and those who know me, I'm keeping myself to a few notes, because I can talk, and I'm willing to talk to you about anything. We'll get some questions later on. But talking about the complexity of things, please be aware that things are changing. CT threat, CSA, modern day slavery. We've had examples of modern day slavery, some really good hits actually here lately with regard to those people who are being gang masters, who are seeking to predate on vulnerable people. FGM, sexual exploitation, which we do very well in Sanctuary. These are things that I have to be really truthful with you and say they're diverting a lot of officers away from those things they're able to do with the much more traditional criminality, because they're far more complex in nature, and they do take their time. And all I would urge you to consider, please, is this. Northumbria Police has a vision for the future about being outstanding in the service we provide, and that is nothing to do with any inspections, about what you feel and what the people that you represent feel about the service we give to them. But we also recognise we have to prioritise some things, and I don't hide behind this, and I'm very happy to stand here and be pilloried by you if you disagree with me. But Northumbria Police has to represent those who are vulnerable first and foremost, and do everything it can to safeguard those vulnerable people from being further predated upon, or from making sure they are safe. And I have to share with you, I am telling my staff, because it's now my gift to do that as the chief, I want you to do that first and foremost. Once you've done that, then we will sequentially deal with everything else. And we're getting to that stage in policing now because of the challenges we're facing. But no doubt there'll be some questions. I'll be able to talk through some of those challenges if you want to put them into a little more granularity. So what I will say, because I recognise I've probably talked a little bit actually longer than I perhaps should on some of the issues. Going back to that very first point, Northumbria is a good force? Yeah, it is. I want it to be a great force. I think we can do that better by understanding yourselves better, which is why I'd like this to not be a one-off, but be a start of something. Understand what your feelings are, what people are sharing back with you, the public that you represent, and that you are able to understand probably better than I can, because I don't see them all the time. And I would like you to help us go on a journey of doing our level best to share with you those things we are doing, so your understanding of them. Because we are going to have to change the way we do some things. We are already dealing with, although we're doing it very effectively, we have a system whereby we know we can't go to everything now. So if we assess that incident, find that it's not a vulnerable person, wherever we can, if there's no forensic opportunities and no offender to arrest, we will try and resolve that from a centrally based resolution team that will do it over the phone. Doesn't mean it's not being investigated, because it is, because they have access to all sorts of things. I believe our community is going online the same way as all other communities are. So it's still investigation, but that physical presence of officers going out, we're trying to stop going to all of the things that we're not getting any value or adding value to, in order that we can then go out to, and with regard to, I don't want to bring that back, but that about the emergency. If we get an emergency, we've got to be there to go and deal with it. And we have to free our staff up to do that. And we're currently working through some models that I will be sharing with all those in authority, the leaders, the chiefs, all those people who represent you, who will then share back with you. Once we get an understanding of how we can do things differently, I assure you we will share it, because that's my intention, take you on a journey with us. Look, I could talk for an awful lot longer. I'm sure you don't want me to at the moment. Can make things more specific, Northumberland, if you'd like me to. Two things. I don't know if you want to take questions now for me, and then the reason Andy is here is because Andy, those of you who don't know him, is a superintendent from Northumberland itself, and it's a great jewel in our crown, Northumberland County. It's a fantastic place, isn't it? God, I love it. I've lived here for many, many years, and brings its own challenges, though, real challenges. And luckily, we've been doing this for a lot of years, and we're quite good at it. But Andy, we are trying to push in that national space of rural crime to make an influence, to make sure that policing more generally, because you've got to remember, we're one of the few forces that has a rural community, that has a real rural element to it. Most forces are primarily urban in their construction, and they don't recognise that we have different funding issues and need to do things differently because the rural environment we have, they don't understand it. So I get very little support sometimes from my peers when we're seeking to influence government about the special case that we are because we have rural environment. So we're trying to push in that national space so we can influence it better, and Andy's doing that on our behalf, and we'll give you an update around that should you wish it.
You've had 15 minutes. I'm going to allocate another few 15 minutes.
By design. Good afternoon, everybody. Is that working? Good afternoon, is that working?
Yeah.
Very good. For the sake of the record, I'm Superintendent Andy Huddleston, and as well as being the Chief's bagman, I'm Head of Neighbourhood Policing for Northumberland. And this is probably one of the few meetings where I can get away with not getting a wry smile from everybody, that I'm actually the national lead for agricultural plant and machinery theft as well. And when I travel the country, I tend to get a smile from everybody else apart from the farmers. But there we go. In my time I've been up here now, coming up 2 years, we've had a real push to emphasise the work we do around rural crime and addressing some of those issues that historically may not have been reported by the communities to the police. So in particular, if any of you have heard of Operation Checkpoint, that is where we work with volunteers to run operations where we work together with gamekeepers, farmers, members from the rural community to run operations where we look for vehicles, people that are moving around that shouldn't be, and basically stopping them and arresting them where we can and tackling that crime. 2 years ago we had about a dozen volunteers to help us with that, which wasn't particularly great. In the last 18 months that's now grown to between 30 and 40 volunteers, and the next operation is actually tomorrow night. The big advantage we've had from that is we're now sharing more information with those people that volunteer and work with us to tell them a little bit about who the people we're looking for and how we get a bit of an insight into what they also know about these criminals that we can help tackle them. But we're also involving those volunteers by giving them police radios that are locked to a channel so they get to hear what's going on and what we're actually doing. Because there's nothing more frustrating than sitting beside the side of a road till the early hours and not understanding what's actually going on. So Checkpoint has gone from strength to strength. That's seen nationally as good practice, and now we're starting to tie in with forces across the region so that when we do that operation, we don't just do it in Northumberland, we do it in Cleveland, we do it in Cumbria, we do it into Scotland and to Durham as well. So that's something that the press have been out with us as well, and it's a great opportunity to showcase what we do. As part of the role that we've done nationally, we've been pushing with the fact that the rural community are targeted by organised crime groups. That has been around the machinery, particularly quad bikes, Land Rovers, particularly with second-hand value going up recently when they stopped making it. And we're starting to see more innovative approaches into the way that criminals are targeting us. So, for example, within Northumberland, we have had a case of where a machine, a big telehandler, was actually stolen, and then the farmer got a phone call to say, "We've got it, we're ransoming it, would you like it back?" So that gives you an idea of the innovation that organised crime groups are going to try and target what are effectively they see as quite high returns for them, because at the moment theft of a JCB does not get the level of prison sentence that the burglary of a house or drugs or firearms would get. So it's something we're working with to tackle that. As part of that, one of the issues we have is that manufacturers need to come on board with us and help us. One of the big manufacturers, Hitachi, did not mark their machines with any security marking whatsoever. So when we recover things, we cannot identify where it's from. As the result of some meetings that the Northumbria team have had with Hitachi, all of Hitachi's machines up to 8 tonnes, which are about 2,000 units every year that come into the UK, are now going to be marked with CESA data tag. That is something that has taken years previously to achieve, and within the last 6 months, Northumbria team have been able to achieve that, and I'm very proud of what they've done. One of the things I would say is that our position on a national scale has been emphasised, that we've been behind and supported the Crime Stoppers rural crime number, a dedicated Crime Stoppers number, and that was launched in Westminster with a group of MPs and with the Deputy CEO from the NFU, and that is a number that I would encourage all of you, whether you're farmers or not, to use that number to report rural crime issues, and the person on the other end of that phone will be somebody that understands the difference, and when you start talking about theft of a yow, they know what that is. The last thing I would mention is that we attended the Rural Crime Summit in Harrogate, chaired by North Yorkshire, Julian Mulligan, the PCC, and it was an opportunity for us to promote and showcase what we do in Northumberland. It is without doubt one of the safest places to live. It is a massively huge area, twice the size of Luxembourg, I like to tell people, and it is with it brings the challenges of how we cover such a large area. What came from that is that we cannot do this alone, and it is something that has to be done in conjunction with both volunteers and with the farming community, and it's through the volunteers, the likes of Operation Checkpoint, the likes of reporting information to us through Crime Stoppers, that we will tackle the issues and the crime problems that we have. But I'd last leave you with, it is a fantastic place to live, it is a safe area, and really the issues that we do have, whilst they do stand out for their impact, the numbers are still low, but it's something where I would encourage you to keep that contact going with our police teams and our neighbourhood teams, and we'll continue to make it an even safer place than what it is now.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take a few questions at discretion. Councillor Dungworth.
Thank you. Thank you for coming along and for your update, and I agree with you that Northumberland is by and large very safe and good place to live and work. And whilst I acknowledge that there are particular issues around policing in rural areas, the fact is that over 60% of our population actually live in urban conurbations and so face those issues. And I suppose the issue I would like to raise you is I have seen a difference over the past couple of years in terms of visibility of both police and community support officers within our communities, and also a poorer communication from those officers to me as an elected member. I recently had to send 3 emails before I received a response from the police officers about an issue. Now, if that's the response I'm getting as an elected member, I'm concerned about what happens, therefore, with members of the public. And I think those issues, I know you're under stress, I know you've got limited resources, but there has been a significant noticeable difference recently. And one of the issues, and I'm going to raise it here because it's the issue that I still haven't really had a proper response about, is about boy racers from Blythe to Whitley Bay that go through the coastal strip. There's already been a fatality in recent years. There will be more fatalities unless something's done. I think there are some things going on, but I'm not being kept in the loop as to what's happening. So when residents come to me saying, this is still happening, I'm not able to report back to them to say, yes, but this is happening. So I'd be interested in some feedback on that.
Boy races are all over, coming to Morpeth at night.
Can I please?
Yeah, but I raised a point with the police and didn't get a response for it.
And in reality, just with regard to the second point, this is very easy, and this is a gift that I've now got. We need to sort it where, when everybody gets in touch, our officers get back and touch them. And that's a Northumberland issue. Don't get me wrong, it's not isolated to you, but I can fix that problem, I'd like to think, very quickly. And we'll take that out. Can I just ask, was the neighbourhood team that you made contact or sought to make contact with? I think it probably was. It's right.
Initially, I made contact through inquiries at Northumberland Police.
Right.
I then made it through the neighbourhood.
Right. Well, here we go. First of all, I'll sort that, and if that doesn't happen, then you recognise from this, I'm dead easy to get in touch with. And whilst I wouldn't like everybody to ring, but please, if that isn't resolved with regard to the contact element, please come back to me. A little bit of confidence around where we've been around contact. Our calls for service have just gone through the roof. And please, this isn't an excuse, and I'll come to the answer in a second. But we've had an uplift of 20% with regard to 999 calls over the last 12 months, 30% with regard to 101s. That caused a problem for us. We actually end up where we had significant waiting times, particularly for 101, not so much for 999, where I will be amazed if there aren't those in the room who've either tried to ring in yourself onto 101 or who had reported back to them, I rang, I couldn't get through, I hung up. Because that will have happened, absolutely. It hit a peak a few months ago, which really highlighted to our attention. Actually, some feedback from councillors put in our domain as well. We've now done an awful lot of work around the 101 number. So with regard to the initial inquiry, if you came in generically to us, we are now operating, we're at 100% for 999 calls answered within 7 seconds, and we're up to, if my memory serves me correctly, 97% of 101s within 35 seconds, which is all just figures, but along with it's improved significantly, and so we should have more confidence in 101. But over and above that, what we have also done is part of the strategy moving forward for the next, I guess, to 2025, for me, setting some direction for the organisation. I talked about vulnerability, that was one element of it. But the community public engagement and the service delivery by way of contact is another element, deliberate element of that. And as a starting point to try and get that better, because if we are saying you're going to come, we need to interact with you in different ways, it needs to be a bit more agile, it needs to be online, it needs to be whereby we are able to respond to you according to your needs and shift you to a different channel rather than that face-to-face, because I'm going to come to visibility in a minute, then we need to make sure we've got the infrastructure behind where we can cope with that. So we've introduced, and it was only introduced at the beginning of the very end of last month, so it's been in for a few weeks.
Right, I've got other people, so I'll
okay.
speed up.
In that case, we have a customer service desk that is actually trying to be a one-stop shop rather than pushing people to post. With regard to visibility, we need to find different ways of doing it. And as I said, some freeing up the officers to be able to make them be in the right place at the right time. But we've lost 1,000 officers.
Okay,
that's the problem.
Councillor Hill. And then Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, can I just give assurances when I ask this question that I'm not going to raise anything that's not already in the public domain? I chair the Council's Audit Committee, and over the last months there's been a number of reports that we've received relating to Arch and the previous administration. Can I finish? There's been a number of reports relating to Arch and the previous Labour administration that some aspects have involved allegations and suspicions of criminality. We have not heard any feedback about what's going on, and members of the Audit Committee, including the independent members and members of the public, are saying what is going on. Are they taking these allegations seriously? Are they deploying resources to investigate these properly? More worryingly, and this is a perception, and I'm quoting from members of the public and others, the Police and Crime Commissioner is a prominent member of the same party. And some people are saying things like, would of course they really take this seriously given the members of the same party? So can you give me assurances that this investigation will be robust and thorough and free from any political interference?
Right, first of all, I'm flabbergasted, in truth, by the latter suggestion. I'm not sure you should need me for Northumberland Police to say we were independent, without fear, investigated, without fear or favour, absolutely independently. But if you do need that reassurance, I'm giving it to you now personally. Okay? I could, okay.
Can you let him answer the question?
Can I just say, the same officers that will be investigating this matter are the types of officers that you see every day, in every walk of life, who go about doing their very best for you. And I assure you that anybody charged with the duty of inquiring into any matter will do so without fear or favour, no matter what political persuasion anybody involved in the oversight of policing may have.
Councillor Castle.
Not less controversial. One of the riskiest things that anybody does is drive a motor car, and exponential increases in traffic in Northumberland as in everywhere. I'm asking, do you feel as Chief Constable that your motor patrols division, your traffic division, has developed in a satisfactory way? Because there have been decisions made in the past that I have found extremely difficult to support and pass on, as I did support them. And I wonder if you feel you've got that right. Given that this is a risky activity, given that motoring is something that we all do you think your force has got or has yet to get right your traffic controls, your traffic patrols and your policies?
Trying to make this not too simplistic. It would be really interesting to know what the specific issues are, and we haven't got time to do that. And I wonder if we could set something up outside of this, merely because my answer in a timely way would be to say, yeah, I think we do, but that's because have you heard of Operation Dragoon? There's two elements to it, and that's about the targeting by antisocial behaviour using an intelligence approach, where the first people to do it's been taken on nationally and internationally, and we do a great job at that. There are some particular areas with regard to the road infrastructure in North, particularly the single carriageways and some of the junctions, where we are doing an awful lot of work with regard to behavioural change, especially around some of the more elderly drivers. So I think we're really taking a massively preventative approach, and I genuinely do, because I interact with the motor patrols very regularly. I would be interested to see which bits you think we're getting wrong, because if there's something that I think we can take on board, I assure you we will. But at the moment, I'm really confident, but you could help me to overcome that, perhaps.
Right, I have no... Yes, come on, I'll take one more. Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, I would just like to commend Northumbria Police for their sterling work, and it's all due to the savage, disgusting cuts this Tory government's given you. So I commend everything that you do. Congratulations.
Thank you for that question. Not. Right, Councillor. Yes? Is it a question?
Yes, as a question, yes. Chief Constable, we're all here as public servants, and we're all trying to do more, or at least as much, with less. We all acknowledge that is where we are. Do you believe that the Data Protection Act is actually a little bit of a hamper to the sharing of information? Because I chair the Safer Northumberland Partnership, as you know, and I certainly get it from some of my officers and some of my colleagues that actually information sharing should be better. And, you know, we could work better together, but we're all a little bit frightened of the data protection.
Whilst I caveat it with, of course, I can't set policy and I can't set regulation, I would say as an investigator, yes, it is a bureaucracy we have to overcome. Probably the best example and share of that is the Facebook that's going on at the moment with regard to the access to the password. So we see this from very, very non-judgmental, low-level information sharing right up the high end, and it is difficult for us. However, there are ways to overcome that through agreements. We should be pragmatic and practical. One of the things that I'm saying out in my tenure with regard to being here and trying to get a better join-up is to try and get us under the same roof. Because if we can have public services under public sector reform, recognising we can all make a difference under the same roof, we can share that information much more directly. A way that we are trying to be very proactive in that, and I recognise that, and we can speak out of this again to try and find other ways. But talking about the checkpoint, we've now found a way we can share information, albeit slightly sanitised, with people who aren't police officers, but doing a really good job for the local community by coming volunteering with us. So there are ways to overcome it. Yes, it hampers us, but of course we have to recognise the rights and privileges of others, so we work within it to the best of our ability, and working under one roof would help us to do that.
Well, thank you for your attendance. We will take you up on your offer. We have other avenues, as in scrutiny. Personally, I miss the LMAPs that was taken away, because I thought that was a useful thing. But I think we need dialogue on what comes next with value. Okay, thank you for your attendance. Now let's get into second gear. Council questions. I'll take them as they came in. Councillor, question number 1 from Councillor Grandpa Pidcock.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you very much again. First of all, 8 of the 15 questions this afternoon are from Tory to Tory. You're abusing the question time, I believe, to enhance your own political position. The question is this. Holiday hunger, I'm not going to read it all. The holiday hunger is the shame of this government. It's the failure of its policies, and particularly the rollout of universal credit, that has caused widespread misery in our communities. And it is misery. What measures has this administration put in place to ensure that no child went hungry during the school holidays? And I added, when I wrote my question in, but it was deleted from the... And please can we have an answer that is heavy on facts and not abuse?
Councillor Daly.
I think the first thing I would say, and I'm speaking on behalf of everyone here, is welcome back, Councillor Pidcock, after your very short little break away, and I'm glad to see you in good health. And so it's good, and I didn't realise you were a grandpa again, probably, so congrats on that.
Do we give 2 cheers to Councillor Pidcock? Hip hip.
So in answer to your question, and genuinely thank you for the question, it is a really important issue. And we recognise that the school summer holidays is a challenge for a number of families, both nationally and particularly locally as well. And this isn't a new issue. In January of this year, the Department for Education launched a new programme of research and pilots to explore ways of tackling holiday hunger amongst children from some of our most disadvantaged families. Supported by our Northumberland Poverty Coordinator, fully supported by myself, and working as a multi-agency partnership with voluntary and statutory services, Northumberland County Council was awarded funding to deliver 2 pilot projects within the county. This funding was used to identify, through our school network, children most at risk and support the provision of organised enrichment activities for up to 5 weeks of the summer holiday period. In Blyth, for example, 91 children were supported through a multi-agency intervention, including partners, Bede Academy, Horton Grange School, St Wilfrid's, Newsham Primary. Other partners included Leading Link, Off the Grid, Bede Sixth Formers, Northumberland County Council Community Sport Development, Friends of Ridley Park, ASDA, 6 youth workers, 2 school teachers, and 8 of our youth ambassadors. It was a genuine and real partnership approach. As part of this offer, 2 healthy meals per day were also provided to all children. These pilots will be evaluated to consider both the physical and educational impact for young people. Planning is already underway to look at next year's schemes, and the ongoing work with food banks, I accept, is invaluable. Children's services workers in particular work closely with the food banks and signpost families where appropriate. And where families are identified as being particularly vulnerable, appropriate assessments are undertaken with the families who agree that this would be of benefit, and a more holistic support offered to address some of their needs. As a result of this intervention, which has just finished over the summer, several families have been referred on to 0 to 19 pathways. Age ranges of the children taking part were from under 8 to up to 14 years of age. Significantly, 76 children have signed up to the Children's University, and I want to thank Draeger publicly for helping sponsor this fantastic opportunity. This is just the start, and with the help of Newcastle University, who are helping to evaluate this scheme, we want to help more than the 121 children and families that we've so far supported. So thank you genuinely for allowing me to tell you about how we're supporting communities.
Thank you for that factual reply. Councillor Pidcock, supplementary.
I'm extremely grateful for that answer, which was very heavy on facts and completely devoid of abuse. I really appreciate that. Catherine Kirby, Ofsted's Regional Director for the North East, has recently written to schools in the North East expressing her deep concerns over fixed-term exclusions as a method of selection and bolstering results. What mechanisms are in place in our county to ensure that our maintained schools, and especially the academies, and most particularly Bede Academy, are not using fixed-term exclusions to enhance results and using it as an admissions strategy?
Okay, before the chair comes in, I know that's not a supplementary to the answer, but I'm very happy to answer it. It really was, and it was nice and sneaky. I like it. Hip, hip.
Yeah.
So what I would say to you on that one is, over the last couple of weeks, certainly before that, but certainly over the last couple of weeks, I've had some very detailed, intense discussions with our Director of Children's Services, with our Director of Education, about the matter to which you are referring, and I can imagine that you'll understand it is extremely sensitive. It is not just the particular school you've mentioned, there are other schools on my radar. As a result of this, in the last week, we are setting up a small task and finish group to look at this. I know that the Director of Education and myself are out to see the particular school that you've mentioned fairly soon. I completely agree that using exclusions as a form of either manipulating or trying to sort of improve results is not appropriate. And that's something that I can categorically assure you is not acceptable to me. I completely understand what Ofsted are saying, not just Ofsted, the Children's Commissioner and others. This is categorically on my radar. I do not like it. It is not acceptable to me, and very serious conversations are being had. We will address this issue, and I will make sure that it is fed back to members. So thank you for that opportunity as well.
Right, please members, supplementaries are supposed to be on the same line as you have asked your first question. The second question is about what the response you have had. Question 2, Councillor Robinson to Councillor Riddle.
Councillor Riddle. Like many other members, I sit on Strategic Planning Committee and the Planning Committee of the LAC. As we hear applications which could often be described as contentious, extra conditions are sometimes suggested and agreed as part of the granting permission. However, I'm concerned that many of these conditions are either subsequently ignored, with builders assuming carte blanche to do whatever they want, or are subverted by simple variations to condition at the building stage. Many of these are retrospective in nature, but once mature trees are felled, or ancient hedgerows removed, or structures built, how can these be treated as a simple variation? My question is therefore, when are we going to see these agreed conditions enforced with some determination instead of being treated with what looks like contempt by developers, so that members can feel confident that the time and trouble they take in determining these applications and the conditions imposed are going to be treated seriously by all parties?
Councillor Riddle.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. As you probably know, planning enforcement is a reactive service investigating all complaints that are received. The service takes all alleged complaints, including breaches of planning condition, very seriously and will work to informally resolve the breach before taking further action. It is important to note that enforcement action is a discretionary power, it's not statutory, and is very complex. The legal processes involved are often lengthy and complicated, and an instant response or resolution cannot be guaranteed. In most situations, informal action will initially be undertaken to resolve any alleged breach of planning control, and before any formal action is undertaken, consideration will be made as to the expected results from the action in relation to the level of harm that is being caused, and whether it is expedient or reasonable to undertake such a course of action. If a breach is identified but works are likely to be granted approval, the enforcement officer will then request that a retrospective application is submitted, allowing a full formal assessment to be carried out on the development, and the statutory consultation period would apply. This is all in accordance with the Town and Country Planning Act, which provides that retrospective applications can be made. And when a retrospective application is not submitted or it is refused, the development will be unauthorised, and this will be registered as a land charge. Consideration can then be given as to any further action that is appropriate to pursue in respect of the unauthorised developments. It is clear from the beginning of the investigation that the breach identified is not acceptable and that it is considered that permission is unlikely to be granted. We will ask for the use to cease or the unauthorised development to be removed. A suitable period of time will be given depending on what needs to be done.
Okay, is there a supplementary?
I have actually listened to the answer. Given the first part of the answer, is it worth us setting conditions on planning applications then? Because I'm not sure it is. If it's not a statutory responsibility of somebody to be checking these works off.
Planning enforcement is not a statutory requirement, but if there's been a planning condition made or planning has been granted, then it has to be followed through. So the answer is we are getting a lot better on enforcement. We have more enforcement officers. We are taking a much stronger line. I think it's fair to say in the past we have been weak on enforcement and builders and developers have been getting away with things. That is changing, and I think you'll see in the next week or two we are going to take some pretty strong actions.
Question number 3, Councillor Dale to Councillor Sanderson.
A bit blurred in that, that's right. You're right, sorry, thank you. Yes, Councillor Sanderson. When will the Council be consulting with ward members in the west of the county before it responds to the consultation document on the proposed Bridge End and Stiford Junction improvements on the A69 by Highways England?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. As you probably know, the A69 is not controlled by the County Council. It is a road that is controlled by Highways England and the Department of Transport. It's an exceptionally important road for the county, carrying up to 26,000 vehicles a day in some of the busiest sections. And that is why the County Council have been asking Highways England for a number of years now to extend the dualling and to concentrate on some of the more important, in our view, roundabouts and junctions, such as the junction to Fourstones and the junction to Acombe. We have had a number of discussions with Highways England, and they, whilst they haven't carried out a consultation, they have had 2 drop-in sessions. We have asked for the results of those drop-in sessions so we can then analyse what their proposals are technically and hopefully play some part in helping them develop those schemes. However, we are not happy that Highways England have gone ahead with these 2 particular proposals when we think there is more important work to be done on the A69. The leader of the council feels strongly about this, and he's actually just written to Highways England an open letter expressing his concerns. But I can say that we have agreed that Highways England should come to the next local area council in the west, and I've discussed this with the chairman, and he's agreed to take this as urgent business. So next week Highways England will come to that local area council and have the opportunity to explain their ideas and to be questioned by members of that council.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you very much for full report. Can I just ask you, this is on behalf of the County Council, because we have actually, I spent an hour with Highways England, and just so you know a bit of the past, a long time ago, it'd be 1996 or 7, I campaigned for Highways England to close the middle centre of the A69 at Moden Hall, because we had 12 deaths. And it took a lot of campaigning, but I got there. And we haven't had any, well, obviously we haven't had any deaths because it's been closed more or less. However, one of the other things I did campaign for was ask for a slip road off to Stocksfield on the A69. And that was welcomed. It took a lot of time and work to get there, but I did get there. Now, I went along, and like you, I think everybody is totally dissatisfied with the proposals put forward to Highways England, because all of us thought we would be getting more dualling towards Carlisle And they said they didn't have a lot of money, and of course they'd own the land roundabout, so it was easy and it was a cheap tick-off, and I would support what both you and the leader say on that. However, we do have the opportunity, and I would ask you...
Question?
Yes, I'm going to ask. Could you wait, please?
No, I'm chairing this meeting. I'm asking you to come with the question.
I'm coming with a question now.
Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things I asked for was, as going back to what I've just said, was a slip road. What the County Council could do, not including the area committee, could you ask for slip roads to be made on all the junctions between Wylam turn-off and actually the new Brox Bushes turn-off? Because there are no slip roads there, and it is highly dangerous. And this is the one opportunity where we can say, fine, spend your 30 million, but we want those slip roads, because they are right-hand bend turns, or left-hand. The only one we have in place is the one at Stocksfield, turning to Stocksfield. So if you could do that and give that support when you respond to the Highways Agency, as a council, I'd be very grateful.
Thank you. I can remember very well when we were sitting in those benches and I asked a supplementary question, usually to Councillor Swithenbank, and was told by the then chairman of the council to sit down after I'd been asking my supplementary question for less than 10 seconds. Those were the good old days. What I would say is the question you ask is, yes, that will be put to our officers. They have raised a number of issues, particularly around those junctions, and we will be seeing to those and raising it with them.
Question number 4, Councillor Dale.
Sorry, yes. Councillor Ford, this is put a bit again. When is the proposed working group to take place to discuss the motion put forward by Councillor Davey and seconded by Councillor Jackson last year on the use of social media by councillors?
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. The first meeting has been arranged to take place on Monday, the 24th of September at 2 p.m.
Thank you. I don't know who you've got on the working group, but I would actually like you to look at broadening the scope of the working group. I'm quite happy that you have got a working group going, but I'm quite happy also to share with you all the information I have, and I'm sure a lot of other people would like to share the information they have on trolling, on abuse, and everything else. And I think that, considering what the Chief Constable has said about the time used, that actually we should look at this and take account of the behaviour. I'd also like you to look at declarations of interest, and also on some of the reporting methods that have come out, and I would especially mention, I'm a member of the Church of England, and I was made aware of the feelings of the Church of England about the consultation on the schools in the West last year. And actually that was something you really need to look at, because it was not appropriate for the Bishop of Newcastle to say that. So could you look at all these things, because they are important.
Can members please ask a question? Councillor Oliver.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think the answer probably to all three of those questions is no, no, and no. We can't be looking at trolling. I mean, if you have an issue with a particular member's behaviour or a particular issue to do with social media, there is a policy in place. We will, as a working group, be looking at the scope of that policy and looking at what we can do to fine-tune it. But if the sorts of issues you're talking about, if you have real issues with that, then I think there's a number of mechanisms. If it's an issue you think is to do with the councillor, then there is a complaints procedure and a standards procedure, and I suggest you use that. If it's an issue of defamation, there are quite sort of clear laws about defamation. And if it's more serious than that, then I think you can call the police. This social media group is not about trying to police the internet. It's not within our remit, it's not practical, and it's not what we're setting out to achieve. I'd like to think that we would actually achieve something that is more along the lines of using social media in a positive, honest and truthful way, rather than creating fear and putting out inaccurate information. So I think we need to look at it. It's an all-party committee, and we'll all have an opportunity through the members that are coming to this group to sort of look at what the opportunity is for improvement. In terms of declarations of interest, I didn't really understand that point, but if you have any issues with declarations of interest, then I suggest that's probably a matter that you need to report to the Legal Services Manager. And then finally, I'm afraid I didn't understand the point about the consultation and the bishop either, but if you want to come and see me separately about that, or write to me separately, or to the portfolio holder for education, then I'm sure we'll be more than happy to address that. Thank you.
It was originally a cross-party working group, and it would just like ask who's actually on the committee, because the ones that's looking at these celebrating who's on it, please.
As I understand it, I think Councillor Davey, as the Labour leader, has agreed to join the working group. Is that correct?
Well, I think I did at the very start, Councillor, but I didn't know there was a one on this month.
Okay, well, we'll get that addressed. I mean, I've certainly had an invitation. And Councillor Reid, I think you've been invited. Yeah. Have you had your invitation? Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not quite sure. And I think Councillor Robinson, I think you were invited as well.
First I've heard of it, sorry.
Oh, Councillor Crosby, apologies, sorry. But did you get your invitation? Did you receive your invitation? Yeah, okay, so we'll have yours checked, Councillor Davey. Unless it's gone to the wrong Councillor Davey. No, okay. We'll get it checked and we'll make sure it's issued.
It will be sorted.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Thank you.
Got a long agenda. Councillor Hill, question 5 to the leader.
Thank you, Chair. In light of the recent Ledbury Town Council judicial review judgment, the subsequent decision by Hereford City Council not to renew its membership of the National Association of Local Councils and the Herefordshire Association of Local Councils, and given the related problems in many councils in Northumberland and elsewhere, do you agree that there are lessons to be learned for the entire local government sector and steps which would be wise for NCC to now take, for example, by making the Ledbury case study recommended reading for all councillors and officers within this authority and within our town and parish councils?
Leader.
Right, yeah, thank you, Councillor Hill. Again, a very important subject and a very technical subject, so forgive me for reading this, but there is a degree of background for members because I don't think everyone's totally au fait with this situation. But this judgment referred to in Councillor Hill's question concerned a member of Ledbury Town Council who had come into conflict with the town clerk, who brought a grievance against that particular member. The grievance was upheld by the Town Council, which then adopted various protective measures, including removing that member from who complained from all committees and instructing her not to speak on behalf of the council. The member then self-referred herself to the monitoring officer of Herefordshire Council as a member code of conduct complaint. Following investigation of the complaint, it was found that the member concerned had not failed to follow the member's code of conduct. Nonetheless, the Town Council maintained its protective measures. The member concerned then challenged the Town Council's decision by way of a judicial review on the basis that the protective measures were sanctions which could only be imposed as a result of a standards or code of conduct process, and also on the basis that the decision-making process was unfair. She succeeded on both grounds. This decision appears to confine most complaints about councillors to the Members' Code of Conduct process under the Localism Act 2011, in respect of which this authority, as a principal authority, in common with all other principal authorities, has a duty to adopt arrangements under which allegations of misconduct against all councillors in their administrative area, including parish and town councillors, can be considered. As a result of the judgment, employees will now generally not be able to use their council's grievance procedure if the subject of their grievance is a complaint against a councillor. While it is much too early to tell, it is considered by some commentators that this will lead to more principal authority involvement in local council matters concerning alleged misconduct, and place additional burdens on monitoring officers and their staff as well. In the more serious cases, such democratic structures as the principal authorities may have included within their arrangements for such complaints, such as the council's own standards committee. In Northumberland, Mr. Rickett, the chief officer of the Northumberland Association of Local Councils, has, following the issue of the judgment, made all of his member councils aware of this decision and has made further details available to these councils who may require more information. The effect of the judgment is something which all councils will now have to be aware of, at least in principle, should similar circumstances to those of Ledbury arise in the future. But as a principal authority, we will take our responsibilities very seriously in this regard. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Thank you. Just on the, thank you for the full answer. Just on the specific matter of the withdrawal from their equivalent of NULC and the Herefordshire Association of Local Councils, their concern was that the advice that they had received in pursuing this case was it was incompetent and lacked any objectivity. Historically, there has been a concern, and this includes the local government ombudsman, is too weighted, these bodies, with officers and ex-officers. So there's a question about impartiality and the competence. So my question is, what assurances can we have, or can it be reviewed, that our associations that we are affiliated to and pay membership fees for are suitably, the advice will be sound and not impacted with any lack of partiality?
Yeah, I don't recognise what's happening in Gloucestershire as happening in Northumberland in any way, shape or form. But I'm quite happy to refer this to our standards committee, who have independent members and quite a number of county councillors on their representation and on their membership, and also town and parish councillors. So I think that's the best place committee within the council to consider the detail of this. Thank you.
Right.
Chair, procedural clarification. When this happened a few months ago, did you not put a time scale on the questions?
There was 27 questions.
Was what?
27. There's 15. I did put it's all at my discretion. I'm trying to get through. The agenda is not, might be. And Gordon, I take the point. Okay, question 6, Councillor Hill to lead it.
Thank you, Chair. For decades, with justification, residents of Berwick have complained about being the forgotten town. Residents have watched as millions and millions of pounds were being pumped into places elsewhere in Northumberland, while Berwick was receiving next to nothing for anything meaningful in terms of enhancement to essential service facilities or regeneration. This situation has led, understandably, to a climate of cynicism, resentment, high demand, but low expectations. What assurances can you give that things are and will be different under this administration regarding meeting the needs of Berwick?
Leader.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think you can see already just from the content of the Berwick Advertiser over the last month or two that there is an awful lot more going on in Berwick and the surrounding area, and that it's no longer the forgotten town. And I hope the residents start to feel that and feel the increasing amount of effort that we're putting into it. We're doing an awful lot for the town. In particular, that area of Northumberland is essential to our work with the North of Tyne Combined Authority, but more pertinently the Borderlands Growth Deal, of which we make to more hope to make more announcements of the specifics in the next few weeks. However, our support to the town already does include progressing the proposed development of a new integrated health, social care and leisure facility to bring absolute first-class facilities to the town to support delivery of health and well-being generally. And that is investment totalling at least £49.2 million. But you'll be aware that on top of the North Area Council arrangements, we've also given you dedicated support for the Berwick Regeneration Commission, the town's new partnership between the county and town council to drive forward regeneration in the area, but with a democratic mandate that's never been there before. There is a wide range of economic development projects via the council's development company to support a vibrant business pace in the Berwick area. So we have local Berwick businesses benefiting from North East Rural Growth Network funding and Business Northumberland support and training. So for example, this year Berwick Smile Dental Care was awarded £60,000 of funding through the North East Rural Growth Network. There are actually 48 businesses in the Berwick area who are registered to the Business Northumberland programme, and we're working intensively with them on various workshops such as GDPR and Facebook for Business. These businesses have been attended by 27, these events have been attended by 27 individual Berwick-based businesses in June alone. The development of the Ramparts Business Park, which is now designated by the government as an enterprise zone, is moving forward rapidly. So we have new investments of companies such as Toot Toot, who are one of the top 30 achievers in the latest Times Magazine list. We've just agreed terms for an additional 2 units with office-based companies, one from being outside the area, who have, and one will have secured a sale of shell units to an education provider. Terms are out for a further local business looking to develop both office and the development on the park. And very soon we actually see the situation in which Ramparts Business Park will actually be full and occupied and providing many jobs for people across the Berwick area. And we've also supported the private sector to encourage investment in the town. So in particular, we've worked with Premier Inn to bring forward their planned new hotel development, as well as improving retail, commercial and the visitor offer for Berwick. In terms of delivering better infrastructure for the town, the council is working closely with local business and transport providers. This includes the £2 million of improvement to the Port of Berwick, and also the development of a new coach parking facility at the Leisure Centre, and our new parking action plan, which we've been discussing with the Town Council, with investment from within our £10 million capital funding for car parking. We've been working with LNER to improve signage and wayfinding at the station, as well as a vast number of attempts to make a step change to the visitor economy of the town. We have enhanced environmental services through partnership arrangements with Berwick Town Council. We've secured the nationally acclaimed green flag status for Berwick's revitalised Castle Vale and Coronation Parks. And we've invested in our workforce who are based in the Tweedmouth Depot in Berwick, both in terms of staff training generally, but in particular in the creation of new apprenticeship positions to give young people in the local community a step up into the world of work. So I think from that list, and I apologise, it is an extensive list, but I think people should realise from the Berwick area the actual extent of the work that we're doing in that area, and we intend to do much more in the years to come. Thank you.
That was a very long response. Have you got a supplementary?
Thank you. Just on the issue, thank you for the answer of engagement. It's very welcome that the Cabinet coming to Berwick on Monday. Is this going to be a one-off, or is this going to be part of a concerted effort for the Cabinet to come and engage when it fits in with the busy diaries to come and speak to people in Berwick? Because you will get a very warm welcome.
Thank you for that. I mean, obviously there was a particular decision that would make a big difference to Berwick that we're going to take on Monday, and we probably intend to do that more across Northumberland, where there's a specific report that's relevant to an area. We'd be very happy to take the Cabinet to those particular towns, and that doesn't just include Berwick. Thank you.
Question 7, Councillor Ruffhead to Councillor Homa.
Councillor Homa, with the local economy of some of our communities dependent upon the tourism industry and research showing that tourist decision of where to visit can be influenced by locations used in film and television, would the administration support there being a page on our council's website providing information of notable locations across Northumberland that have been used in major film and television titles as a means of promoting our county's unique visual assets?
Councillor Homa.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. The Council absolutely recognises the value of supporting television and film production within the county. Northumberland has featured in many high-profile film productions, including the BFG, Macbeth, Transformers, Eagle of the Ninth, The Waterboys, Churchill, The Railway Man, Your Highness, and most recently, The Outlaw King. TV dramas featuring Northumberland include Downton Abbey, Inspector George Gently, Beowulf, Wolfblood, Hollow Crown, and 8 series of the hugely popular Vera. With a successful feature film being seen by an average of 72 million people, and regular primetime audiences of 4 million being reached by ITV's Tales from Northumberland, we do see TV and film as significant elements of promoting the county as a visitor destination. The Council is developing a place-based approach to promoting the county as a great place to live, work, study and invest. So opportunities for visitors to explore notable locations and promotion of the county as a location for new film and television productions will be included on the website. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. With The Outlaw King starring Chris Pine as Robert the Bruce being premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival tomorrow and released on Netflix along with several limited cinema screenings later this year, and given that one of the pinnacle scenes was filmed in Berwick-upon-Tweed last October, will the Cabinet Member for Culture, Arts, Leisure and Tourism and this administration support calls for seeking an exclusive screening of the film to take place in Northumberland to promote our county, if not in Berwick itself, by writing to the production company Sigma Films to ask so?
Okay, thank you. I was lucky enough to visit Berwick last year when the filming for Outlaw King actually took place, so I do know the level of interest that there was in the town for that particular film. We were in Berwick on Saturday for the finale event of Great Northumberland, and there were quite a number of residents who actually approached us and mentioned about a screening of that particular film. I made a commitment to those people on Saturday that I would ask an officer to do that. We have done it, and I will let you know as soon as we hear back. Slightly complicated by the fact it is a Netflix film, but we will try. Thank you.
Question 8, Councillor Bourne to the Leader.
Thank you, Chair. This is the Leader. It was stated in the early months of the current administration that the former Labour Independent Council had been close to agreeing a 73 million, I think it might be 75 million actually, but you can correct me, loan to a developer to build houses in the Ponteland area. When this was disclosed in this chamber at full council meeting, an offer was made by yourself as Leader to share the evidence of that with the current Leader of the Opposition. Can the Leader confirm whether or not the Leader of the Opposition took up the offer to view the evidence of the multi-million-pound loan to a private developer based in Switzerland?
Right, thank you, Councillor Ball. I do remember when this was talked of in the full council meeting, and there was general shock about this issue. For this council to effectively offer a 75 million loan to a private developer for a development without full planning permission was just such an incredibly risky thing to do. And it just showed the extent to which this council had been paying fast and loose with taxpayers' money. Fortunately, that's stopped now, but we're still picking up the pieces as we go along. The offer to actually view the information was given by the Chief Executive at the time, and I understand that the current Leader of the Opposition has not taken up this offer as yet.
Supplementary. No, I don't do this in questions. Let's crack on. Your guy next to you speak.
Thank you, Chair. Supplemental question. As we remember, those in the chamber, the person involved denied all knowledge of this potential loan. Now, as we are aware, this loan offer had been made. Do you think, as leader of the council, that it is normal practice or appropriate that a chief executive of the council would make approaches to a private company without consulting the then leader of the council?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty extraordinary that the leader of the council didn't know about it. If a similar circumstance arrived now, I would expect the Director of Finance to come straight to me to actually get political cover, because it's actually an amount of money that the council would have had to agree anyway. And I just find it quite extraordinary that the previous council didn't know anything about it. I think it does bring into mind that you've got to question the motives of certain members of the Labour group who constantly champion that particular application, that particular planning application and that particular company.
Thank you. Question 9, Councillor Watson to Councillor Daly.
Thank you. Question to Councillor Daly. Could the portfolio member for Children's Services outline the recent exam results for James Calvert Spence College and inform me of any plans for capital investment into this improving school?
Thank you again for the question. I was invited to the school 3 weeks ago, so I had a good few hours spending time with staff and with students and with families there. And I want to pay tribute to those staff and students there for what has been a significant uplift in the improvement of the school. So let me just talk through some of what the changes have been. In terms of Key Stage 2, overall improvement over and above 2017 outcomes, with writing having the greatest increase of 22.4%. The combined reading, writing and mathematics standards improved by 12%. In terms of Key Stage 4, they've improved on their 2017 attainment 8 points in English and in maths. It was a genuine honour to sit there with A-level students opening their exams and seeing students going out of county, some of them unfortunately to universities, but going to do chemistry, to do sound engineering, to do apprenticeships. It was absolutely fantastic to see the significant improvement which is happening in that school. Regarding the capital investment, the local authority has invested £540,000 in the maintenance of the school building and will be investing a further £110,000 this year into new roofing for the school. The local authority has also received, very welcomely received, an expression of interest from the school to create a specialist provision to meet the needs of children with special educational needs, which could see a significant investment into the school for that particular element. We've had a number of meetings with the school to produce robust business plans for further capital investment into the school. And let me make it very, very clear that we have complete commitment to investing into the school.
Supplementary.
I'm really impressed with those figures. Thank you very much, the portfolio member. Can you please tell me why, in his opinion, he thinks these improvements have happened in the past year or so? Because previously it was a school that was in trouble.
The school still has some work to do, and there's still some improvements that it needs to make, but the overall progress is a positive one. There have been a number of changes in the last year. There's certainly a very strong emphasis on Key Stage 2. A very senior person from Newcastle University is now working at the school, Dr. Anna Reid, who I knew from a previous life, who is very, very good. Councillor Reid there may know the individual I'm referring to. There is, I think, just an energy within the school now to improve. So all I can say is I think there have been changes in the last year. I think there's been a complete refocus. There's an absolute commitment from us as an administration to support the school. So I think, coupled with the support from the community, and particularly the massive effort from teaching staff, from the leadership team, and the young people themselves, I think the school is on a very positive pathway. Still need to do more, but it's heading in the right direction, which for me is a really positive thing.
Okay, question 10, Councillor Watson to Councillor Daly.
I just want to say thank you for that last response, really good. Could the portfolio member for Children's Services tell me what changes have been made by the current administration to support education in the consideration of planning applications for housing? Amble, as I'm sure we all know, has seen over 1,500 houses granted in the recent past, and residents are rightly worried and asking why the previous Labour Independent Council failed to consider and plan for the impact of this large influx of new homes in Amble.
Thank you again for that question. As an administration, we absolutely recognise this, which is why we want realistic housing numbers which actually do not have adverse impact on existing services like GPs, schools, roads and infrastructure in our communities. A realistic sense check on house building. That's exactly what we want. There has been, as you've quite rightly pointed out, significant development within that site. And we've addressed this in January, where we now have a developer contribution into education that we put through that in January. This policy has been in place since January, and since this time, £11.8 million has been secured through Section 106 agreements, and a further £35 million has been requested. The funding will be used to grow capacity within our schools across the county. And for the Amble area, specifically, £693,000 has been secured since January, and a further £6 million has been requested.
Is there a supplementary?
Yeah, very quick. I'm delighted to learn that those figures, that my town, the town of Amble, will at last get proper support for its school. Promises have been made in the past which were not appropriate and should not have been made. Can I have assurances from Councillor Davey that he will pursue with a sense of urgency proper, and I repeat, proper reviews and support for the increased demands in education in my town, our town of Amble?
There is a simple answer to that question, and the answer is yes. We'll continue to have meetings with the schools. We want to fast track that. And as a policy, there is an absolute support for that school. Long may it continue.
Question 11, Councillor Dunbar to Councillor Sanderson.
Could the portfolio holder for enforcement please advise me of the uptake by residents of the Green Dog Walker scheme and what plans the council has to extend both the scheme and the general enforcement, please?
Thank you very much. Members, we've talked about some very serious and important subjects, but I feel, and I think most of the administration feel, that getting the frontline services right, making sure that we listen to what people tell us, make sure that we do the best we can to make the environment in which they live the best we can, is really important. So things like dog fouling, whilst it might not seem to be one of the most key strategic and important things for this council, is nevertheless very important in terms of listening and caring for the people we represent. That's why I'm very proud of this scheme. I can tell you that we now have 1,239 signed up to it in the first year, and that exceeds what County Durham has achieved over the same sort of similar period. It's very important that we continue to drive this forward. We visit schools, we go to a number of shows and local events, and we've been virtually over throughout the county explaining the scheme and signing up new members. I would be wrong, though, not to say that this problem is still serious. In 2015, we had just over 2,000 complaints about dog fouling. Last year, that number was down to about 1,500, 1,600, but that's still far too many. So we must make sure that we continue to be keen and supportive of this voluntary scheme, but on the other hand, be firm and tough where we need to be. And to that end, we've issued 85 fixed penalty notices for people who allow their dogs to foul the streets, and we will continue to act tough where we have to. We would rather do it voluntarily and with the support of dog owners. We'll always do that, but if we need to be tough, then we certainly will be.
Supplementary? No.
Thank you for that. I think that the Green Dog Walker scheme is a very good initiative, and I've recently hosted a dog walking event in Eastfield in Cramlington, and I just want to ask, could I host another one, please?
We haven't fixed up the programme, but I would certainly hope and expect to be in Cramlington, along with as many places we can go to, including Holywell and Berwick. we will get as many places seen to as we can, and I can assure you that Cramlington will be on that list.
Question 12, Councillor Stewart to Councillor Daly.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Could the portfolio holder for Children's Services please update me on what impact the School Improvement Service is having on Ofsted ratings in our first and primary schools? Also, how many schools have improved their ratings in the last year?
Thank you for the question. I have a relatively detailed answer, which I'll try to canter through. The School Improvement Service has had a marked impact on Ofsted ratings for first and primary schools. Of the 8 first and primary schools previously judged less than good by Ofsted, who were re-inspected in 17-18, that's the academic year 17-18, all 8 moved up to good. Of the 12 maintained first and primary schools remaining less than good, so 12 of them, of those remaining less than good, 11 are due an inspection this academic year. And based on all of the work that the Schools Improvement team and their pre-Ofsted inspections, we're expecting of those 12 schools who are less than good, 9 of them to move into the good category. So let me tell you just very quickly about some primary inspections in 17-18. That's from last year into this current, or into the academic year just ended. There have been 11 Section 5 and 22 Section 8 inspections between the 1st of September 2017 and the 19th of July 2018. Of these, 29 were good, 1 required improvement, none were inadequate, and 3 were taking effective actions. So the school that received a required improvement judgment could easily have been judged inadequate were it not for the support of the officers. 3 schools received a Section 8 monitoring inspection. Of these, 3 were deemed to be taking effective action. There are now 105 good or outstanding first and primary schools in Northumberland out of 120. That's the Ofsted rating. And what that means is that 87.5% of Northumberland schools deemed as being primary were good or outstanding at their most recent inspection. This means that we have completely closed the gap with the national average of 87%. We're above the national average. And those are the figures from 2018, March 2018. There will be a full report given to scrutiny, and this will also provide the trends as we go forward. So I would like to personally commend the work of the team.
Have you got a supplementary?
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Daly, for your very factual reply there. I'm delighted with the results. I'm sure everybody in the room here today will be delighted as well. One of the schools I'm a governor at went through Ofsted, fantastic last year. Congratulations to all the schools in my ward. But can you reassure me, as the question come to, that you'll come back and keep us updated on a regular basis?
Absolutely. I'll ensure we have Guy Renner-Thompson here as Chair of Facts. Absolutely make sure that this report goes through, because it's really important that we get our schools to a fantastic standard, and it should be across the board. Shouldn't matter where you live. Outstanding schools.
Question 13, Councillor Hutchinson to Councillor Daly.
Thank you. You're having a busy day.
Trying.
Could the portfolio holder for Children's Services please update me on what impact the school improvement... Wrong question. Could the portfolio holder for Children's Services please advise me on whether the former Labour independent-run council wrote to the Regional School Commissioner recommending the closure of Haydenbridge School?
Thank you for the question. I had a bit of deja vu there. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. The previous administration, via the lead member for Children's Services, Robert Arklis, did write to the Secretary of State for Education at the time, Justine Greening, suggesting that Haydenbridge should close due to the fall in pupil numbers in the west of Northumberland, and I have a copy of the letter.
Supplementary.
When was that?
That was on the 13th of December 2016.
Thank you.
Question 14, Councillor Pidcock to Councillor Wearmouth.
Councillor Wearmouth, you're the Chair of Arch. I'll shorten my question if you shorten your answer. Arch decided, or Advanced Northumberland, Arch decided they're going to build a cinema in Ashington. A lot of us think that's a way of telling the people of Ashington, let them eat cake. It's disparaging. It shows no real interest in the problems that the people of Ashington are facing.
Oh, well done. Councillor Wearmouth.
Thank you, Councillor Pidcock. You must have seen a copy of my notes because I had 2 pages worth of reply for you, which I was waiting. But thank you for shortening your question. I will shorten my answer accordingly. There's an excellent document that's been prepared by the Town Council in Ashington, which is well worth a read, and it details the feedback of a survey where they had about 3,000 households that have come back to them on a consultation they ran, which included some questions on Portland Park. When it came to Portland Park, there was a total of 77% of people surveyed wanted more shops, 60% more places to eat and drink, 56% a cinema, and other popular options were increased access to public conveniences and an enclosed bus waiting area. When it came to lower income households, the second most popular option after shops was indeed a cinema. And those are all things that we're seeking to deliver on the site. We have a lot of other things that are going on in Ashington, and you'll get the chance to vote on one of those later on. And I hope that we will be successful in all these things. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you. Now, this decision taken by Arch to build a cinema in Ashington, this doesn't seem to be working.
It is.
It is. I beg your pardon. This decision taken by Arch to build a cinema in Ashington, but Arch has also signed up, operating as a private company, but signed up to a model, I think it's pronounced as TECL parameters, namely the control and function tests, while you have got to comply with all the rules and regulation that would typify a wholly owned local trading company. Now, how are you going to ensure that this happens when the opposition parties, like we've been stitched up this afternoon, something big style, who form actually a majority of people in the council, how are they going to be involved when they are in fact excluded from all the decision-making processes in this council, including Arch?
Hang on, Councillor Gallagher. I refuse Councillor Davey.
Point of clarity on the survey that was done by Ashton Town Council. First part was, thank you very much.
The first bit was jobs, the second bit was a nighttime economy, and third place was a cinema stroke theatre. So it wasn't specifically for a
Right, thank you for that information. Councillor Weymouth.
I don't think that the supplementary really made much reference to the answer or to the original question. You're more than welcome in this chamber and other places to make your views known. Indeed, I hold regular meetings with all Ashington County Councillors, and a number of the town councillors come to that meeting, members of the former town team, and we take on board feedback from them on Portland Park, and we'll continue to do so.
Councillor Oliver.
I think just addressing the first part of your question, there will be a paper coming before Cabinet shortly in relation to government's arrangements for Advanced Northumberland. So then that will be circulated and you'll have full access to that. And the other thing is, I think going forward, there will be opportunities for the portfolio holder and directors of Arch to go out to local area councils and talk to local communities about what they're doing to support and develop economic growth in those areas. Something that I think I wasn't around at the time, but I think our administration asked for under the last administration when we refused.
Okay, finally, Councillor Thorne, question 15 to Councillor Homa.
Councillor Homa, could the portfolio holder for leisure and tourism update us on whether the Produced in Northumberland branding is to continue and what support is in place to get local companies involved?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Thorne. This administration fully recognises the importance of high quality, locally produced food and drink to the county's tourism economy and is working to continue to develop the Produced in Northumberland scheme further. This scheme is absolutely critical to enhancing Northumberland's appeal as a visitor destination, and it also gives our businesses a competitive edge when competing for new contracts and sales within the sector. There are currently 83 businesses accredited to Produced in Northumberland, with 2 pending and 40 actively expressing interest in joining the scheme, including our very own restaurant here at County Hall. Feedback from the group has been overwhelmingly supportive, with a 95% retention rate year on year. The parliamentary showcase that we held in June, led by the council, was a catalyst for local producers, retailers and hospitality premises, which generated a huge increase of interest in the scheme. This interest included businesses wishing to become part of the scheme, but also businesses and public inquiring where they can buy the unique food and drink being produced within the county. There is an excellent support mechanism in place for the businesses interested in the scheme, which is continually being developed and improved. The scheme itself is operated by the Public Health Protection Unit, which not only provides advice and guidance in relation to the scheme, but also legal issues and guidance in relation to food standards and hygiene as a whole. This is then supported through the IT service via the back office system and development of the website. And this in turn links with our tourism development and communications team, who have been key in the ongoing development and promotion of the scheme. And for lots of the small businesses, they are supported as well through Business Northumberland. This partnership has ensured that the businesses are supported not only through the verification process, but they see the support and ongoing promotion as a benefit of being a member. The scheme's new website, www.producedinnorthumberland.co.uk, and if you haven't had a look, I would urge you all to do so, has a wealth of information and videos of Cy King. If you don't know who that is, he's one of the hairy bikers. There's local producers on there, and local chef Martin Charlton presenting with a tour of Northumberland's food premises. And the future development of the scheme is being guided by the council actively working with members to understand what they would like from the scheme. There is a members focus group which met in August with 23 of the businesses attending. The focus was on discussing potential opportunities for the future, including a national trade food and drink conference in 2019. the development of the produced in Northumberland markets further, and further website and sales opportunities. And there are also events promoting the scheme and its members, as I personally saw in Berwick on Saturday, and we'll see shortly at Alnwick and Morpeth through the food and drink festivals. Thank you very much.
Supplementary.
Thank you. Marvellous to hear that your scheme is getting such good support. You know, I believe Northumberland tourism's most successful advertising scheme was passionate places, passionate people. Do you think we need to get back there to promote our county and our produce?
Councillor Homa.
I think circumstances are very different from when we saw that actual scheme, but we're, as an administration, we're 100% behind promoting the county, and we'll be doing two things in the next couple of months. One is re-looking at the way that we deal with the destination marketing for Northumberland, and making a significant investment into that and bringing it really up to modern day standards, including all the latest technology. And we'll also, as I mentioned previously, be in relation to film and media productions, we'll be looking at a bit of a social media campaign, looking at all the things that we probably already know, but a campaign about why it's great to live in Northumberland, why it's great to work here, why it's great to invest here, and, you know, more specifically, why it's great to visit here. So you should see that in the next couple of months.
Thank you. We are done. I would recommend the sausages at in the restaurant next door. They are new ones. They are from the Northumberland Sausage Company. They're far tastier than the ones that were there before. Right, let's move on. Do you want a break? Sound split. Let's have a vote. Those in favour of a break? In favour of a break? Those against? 50-50. Right, I'm going on. Remember, we've got an hour to go, and then I have to do that. 8. Receive the minutes of the Cabinet meetings held on 1, Tuesday, 10th of July. Pages 23 to 42. Are they accurate, Councillor Pidcock?
Question?
Yes?
The decision to close Bellingham Middle School was taken unanimously by the 7 Tories in the Cabinet that day. Councillor Jackson was missing. Would Councillor Jackson agree with the rest of the Cabinet that he, like the other Tories in the Cabinet, that they should close Bellingham Middle School?
Do you want to? They can ask questions, but you don't have to answer. Do you want to? Yeah, I'm told that he was there.
Are we 10th of July? Councillor P.A. Jackson, Leader of the Council, in the chair.
Any other relevant items on the Cabinet? 24th of July. Councillor Riddle.
I think Councillor Pidcock might be getting mixed up. It was indeed myself who was sitting in the gallery, as I'd already voiced my opposition to the closure of the middle school and had predetermined the decision. So I couldn't take part in the Cabinet decision, Bernard.
Councillor Sesford.
Page 25, Hiddenbridge High School now back in full control of the local authority interim executive board. A bit disappointed to say it ran up a £600 million debt.
Well spotted.
I'm sure that will be corrected.
They took a loan out for it.
Right, there are 2 items to approve. Peter Jackson, Councillor Jackson, minute number 21 of the 10th of July.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Minute number 21 was a decision to invest further in our schools in Camas and Sea Houses. and also into the Rothbury fire station to give them renewable energy supplies. So very pleased to propose that. And then minute number 25, further parks enhancement of Jennings Field, a significant investment for the council in a salt barn programme. At the moment we're actually wasting public money by tipping salt outside and keeping it in poor condition for months on end. So we need to invest in these salt barns, and it's an investor save scheme. And finally, further investment in car parking, of which there'll be more to come in future months. Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Chair, just to say that we agree wholeheartedly with those schemes that have been put forward today. Some of them, of course, we had already put forward, but they must have been on the shelves with the £75 million report and raked off later. But we do agree wholeheartedly with those schemes.
Thank you. Can we agree those schemes? Agreed. Item 9. To receive and consider minutes of the following committees. Pages 47 to 50, and it's the Corporate Services Economic Growth. Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the minutes of the Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 4th of July with one tiny amendment. I'm reliably informed that Councillor Swinburne was present, so can we add him on to attendance? But apart from that, I'd like to move them. Thank you.
Right, anything on those minutes of that meeting? I've got no indication. Are we happy? Item 2, Family and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny, pages 51 to 58. Councillor Renner Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the Family and Children's Services OSC meeting held on the 5th of July. Their minutes, please.
Any councillor? I've got Councillor Pidcock.
Yes, I don't think these are a true record of the meeting that took place on the 5th of the 7th. And I'd like to draw members' attention to the paragraph number 3, which begins in respect of questions regarding the investment into HBHS and the rest of that paragraph.
Can you just give us the
Sorry,
number?
I beg your pardon, it's page 55.
And
the paragraph is number 3, if you don't count the first line at the top, in respect of questions. Now, Councillor Daly was told the Facts Committee that money had been given to an academy, and he said, I would do that because not giving money to academy would be educational apartheid. Educational apartheid. And he closed on that remark. So the sentence, officers confirmed that the proposed capital investment, blah, 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 and it was coming out of the school, the general fund. Now, having made exhaustive inquiries into whether that's permitted, under Gove's academy programme, the land, buildings and assets of a school are transferred when it becomes an academy, at taxpayers' expense, by the way, into whoever is the new owner of the building or the assets. And the Department for Education Land Transfer Advice, April 2013, also confirms that it is expected that when a school becomes an academy, the whole lot, fields, buildings, everything, is given into the ownership of the new business. And I'd like to remind members that this is a business, a private business. And if we're giving money to private businesses, we're using public funds for private companies, which is both morally wrong and probably illegal.
Seems strange, that one, doesn't it?
Can I step in there, Chair?
73 million.
We've heard it for the first time in public this afternoon that the Labour Party completely oppose investment into Hexham. So thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. On a technical level, I think we all heard it. Vote Labour, you get nout in Hexham. or anywhere else, or any other parent whose child attends an academy. So let me be very clear. A number of the academies sitting in Northumberland, we actually own the land on which they sit. That be very clear. And I will make the point that I do not care. I have said this every council meeting, and I'm going to say it again. If need be, I'll put a sign up there. I do not care if you are an academy, a free school, a maintained school. I want outstanding education for all. So on that point, thank you very much for clarifying that Labour do not support investment into education. Thank you.
Councillor Deal.
I'm shocked. Too shocked. I'll hand you the mic.
Can I just go on to, there's two things. If anybody doesn't realise now, one of my big interests is young children education. And if you haven't heard that by now, you should know. Can I just go back, first of all, about the ownership of the land. And I think if you looked at, maybe I'd ask Councillor Daly to go and look at the capital assets. And I think it was 2 years ago, we had £7 million taken out of our capital assets, which was transfer of land to schools, which become academised. So you need to check on that. I'm not going to say you're right or wrong. I think you need to check that is specific, because that was one of the big issues I brought up with, it would be EY, concerning the cost of the academisation programme and loss of assets. So you might like to look at that. You can have a word with EY and they'll inform you. But if you look at the accounts 2 years ago, I haven't looked at capital asset this year, but it's there. Just to go on about, one of the big things I have is what Councillor Daly was talking about earlier on about these exclusions, and you visited Blythe. One of the big issues is with the academies is that county to council.
I'm being asked what page are we talking about?
Oh, I'm going on to elective home education, supporting families and property. Page 56.
All right, continue.
And it's about what we were talking about, exclusion, which is causing elective home education, supporting families in poverty, safeguarding, etc., etc. It's that whole picture of those children. And I do have concerns about some of those children that have been excluded. And you mentioned today about Blythe. Now, that is not the only school that, as you mentioned, and I know of other schools. And I would ask that you ask and work with the local councillor in that area to discuss it with them. Because one of the big issues we have is we don't have powers over academies. They are private businesses. We are responsible, just a moment, we are responsible to ensure they're educated in Northumberland. Now, all I'm asking you is, when you come around to look at those schools where you have got exclusions happening because people are not up to the level of academic ability to pass A-levels, then can you please come and speak to the councillors in that area?
Councillor Daly?
The very simple answer to your question is, there is a very detailed piece of work being done, which is very sensitive. I now have that information. The first thing we're going to be doing is talking to the schools to get some rationale. As you're probably aware, exclusion data, if we speak specifically about exclusion data is then driven down into fine detail.
Absolutely,
using
all the way
coding.
Down to 4-year-olds.
So all of that information is now with us. We now need to have a dialogue with the schools, which is happening very quickly. The next stage is that I anticipate that I'll be able to produce a report which will go through our scrutiny process, because it is important that members are aware. So there will be absolute transparency in this. But the first port of call is the data. We've driven it down. There's some further work we need to do, and then we will start engaging with elected members. But I just want to make something very clear, that is, and put this on record, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I genuinely want to make it clear that excluding children should not be the first port of call for any school, be it maintained or an academy. So we're absolutely on the same page.
Yeah.
So thank you
well,
for your point.
You know my feelings about it.
Right. Anything else on Family and Children's Services? We go on to Communities in Place, Overview and Scrutiny. Councillor Reid, who's come from an operation yesterday on your shoulder. Did they remove it?
No, I've always had the chip on my shoulder, Chair.
Got it in.
Anyway, I moved the minutes of the Community in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 27th of June, pages 59 and 63. But on the minutes on page 65 to 69, although the minutes are correct, I actually moved the agenda around to facilitate the fire service and Councillor Sanderson, and the minutes don't reflect that. So it's right, but it's just in the wrong order, and I'll put that right at the next meeting.
Okay. Anything on these two meetings? I cannot see anybody. Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny. Now then, it'll be Councillor Sesford, because Leslie Rickaby chaired it and she is not here, and you were there, Councillor Sesford.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, in the absence of Councillor Rickaby, I'm happy to move for acceptance of the minutes of the Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which was held on Tuesday, the 5th of June.
Right, I've got Councillor Dickinson. And then Councillor Nesbitt after that. And Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to draw members' attention to page 72, which is the ongoing issue in my ward, which relates to the dental services. And I've previously thanked the committee for taking my written submission and working with myself and others on the consultation events, etc. I just wanted to note that 2018 is drawing to a close in a number of months' time, and it says that an update will come soon. I just wondered if the chair might be aware when that was coming, and if not, could he pressurise them for an update, because my community still has no dentist.
Councillor Watson?
It's scheduled for the next meeting, which is in November.
Councillor Nesbitt?
It's on page 81, paragraph 29. It's about the Collingwood Medical Centre in Blythe. I'd just like to know, has all the transfers been done from Collingwood Medical Centre to other practices, and how many practices have they gone to, which ones, and how many has been transferred over?
I need to declare a personal interest. There was an ex-patient.
Chair, we've got another meeting.
Yeah, and I realise that, and that includes you. Did you chair that meeting?
I did.
Can you take that?
I answered, I haven't a clue.
Can we get back to you, Councillor Nesbitt?
Right. I would like it noted that to get back to especially the members of Blythe, as we have many residents who keep coming to us and ask us what's going on. And the other one I would like to confirm is, are we going to get, can this council make sure that we're going to get plenty of doctors in place? Because Railway now has taken in 500, which is 20 over 30,000 now.
I'm being told that this is a CCG problem,
And I'll be happy to take it up on behalf.
and the Chief Executive is happy to take this up on your behalf.
I would like to say that. Thank
Councillor
you.
Watson, do you want to contribute, or has that been?
Just to say, as chair of the committee which the council is on, I would have thought actually the best place to ask those questions would have been at the committee, where the officers are there to answer them, because we can't answer those questions here. I don't have the information, and that's the point of having the scrutiny committee, which you sit on.
Okay, point made. Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 74, paragraph 20. I'd just like to say how much I support and welcome this extra care and support the housing strategy. And I should imagine it's got unanimous support throughout the council. In a modern civilised society, we all know that there's people, not just elderly people, but there's people who can't quite manage as well as others, and they just need that little bit extra support. But what they don't want to lose is their independence. Now, I would like to give you an example, it'll not take long, of a scheme like this that has been under real pressure recently. There is a shelter scheme in Allendale, and a year past March, 18 months ago, the provider of this shelter scheme was going to pull out. Scheme that provided 14 sheltered flats right in the middle of the village, walking distance to the shops, pharmacy, doctor's surgery.
And this is Allendale?
Allendale.
Yeah.
That's in Northumberland. The provider was going to pull out for commercial reasons, and that provider did their level best to try and keep that facility open. They were getting nowhere. People in this facility were contacting me, the parents, their relatives, the friends were contacting me. They were looking to have to move 25, 26 miles away to Crudder, out of where they lived, out of where the relations were and their friends, have to start in life all over again. It was a terrible situation. And then something absolutely wonderful happened in May. We had an election. And what a completely different scenario happened at the end of May, after the new administration took over. I straight away had fruitful discussions with Councillor Riddle. He said to me straight away, we can't lose a facility like this, because I think he lost one in Bellingham that's similar. Immediately had discussions with senior housing officers. The provider that was pulling out immediately started to have positive discussions with the new administration, and you could tell that this was going to happen. It was going to be saved. And then Councillor Jones, obviously through her position, was getting involved, and the support was wonderful. And we couldn't say too much to the people on there at the time, because until everything's done and dusted, but I let them know that things were going to be improving. And a bit of calm settled on the residents in Allendale. And then I cut out everything that happened over that year, because there was a lot to sort out. The facility needed a massive revamp. But just 5 days ago, last Friday, Councillor Jones, Riddle, Paul Johnson, Phil Soderquist and myself met the residents in Allendale, met with the provider that was pulling out. We had the official ceremony to hand the keys over, but it was more than a ceremony, because the council officers explained to the residents, who not many months earlier had been looking for somewhere else to live, the massive investment that this administration was going to put into that facility. New bathrooms, new kitchens, new windows, providing further rooms. And there and then, the residents actually queued up to sign there in front of us all for lifetime tenancies. So what a difference a year makes. So my thanks to everybody I've mentioned, and thank you to you, Councillor Jackson, the leader, for overseeing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Deal. You want a point of order?
Could you explain to me what the purpose of receiving minutes is, please?
Do you want the legal?
Yeah, to be straying away from the Constitution. It's not to open debate on a different subject.
Well, Councillor Nesbitt did jump ahead and allowed the question because it was the same overview and scrutiny committee. Now,
the question about the minutes on there, that speech had nothing to do with the minutes of the meeting.
right, I've got Councillor Deal in the queue, and then I'll go to the back.
Thank you very much. I was actually going to speak on this one about the supporting housing strategy. Totally different. I represent a mining village where we have quite a lot of houses which actually used to belong to Tynedale Council that now belong to ISOS or Carbon now, and the bungalows, and they are for old people, older people, and you have to be over 60 to live there. I've also got the old miners' bungalows, which are looked after by the miners. The issue is here is, once again, this was a warden scheme. It was a very good warden scheme until the government came in and took out the supporting people. And at that stage, I lost the wardens for that area. The housing company took away the wardens. And with it, just a second, and with it, I'm sorry, I am giving...
Hang on. Let the lady councillor speak, because, you know, I want to hear what she has to say.
Page on 74, right? I'm going to tell you what the problem is, right? Now those people, a lot of the old people can't live there, so they go and move into a care home at vast cost to this council. And that is why I'm bringing it up. That's why I welcome it.
Okay.
But also, can I just say that we need not just to work with private people, but to work with Carbon and all the other providers to bring back the use of those homes in supporting...
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I would just like to go back to Councillor Horncastle's comments. The previous administration had nothing whatsoever to do with the provider pulling out of an association. Another provider would have gone in there, whether it was under this administration or the last one. So I can't see what point he's trying to get over other than score brownie points for the Conservatives. So I totally disagree with his comments with regard to that. And I think we're just getting away from the business and just getting brownie points for all this. I totally agree with Councillor Dungworth. It's getting beyond a joke. It's like the Tory party conference in here this afternoon.
I've spent since 2001 sitting in that chamber. Councillor Horncastle, you were mentioned. Yeah, go on. Can you stand up? He was. It'll be on the
previous administration. The previous administration, from what I believe, wouldn't talk to the provider. That was the problem, and the provider couldn't find any other provider to take it on. The facility was definitely going to close.
Thank you. Let's move on. Can we receive those minutes? Received. 5, Audit Committee, pages 85 to 92. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 5, to receive and consider the minutes, which is a report of what occurred at the meeting. It's not to open up a huge debate on the issues for members that weren't there. The Audit Committee, I'd like to move the minutes of the Audit Committee on the 25th of July as set out in pages 85 to 92.
Any questions or accuracy? Councillor Ruffhead.
I was in attendance and my name's spelled wrong, just for the record there.
And you're councillor for that forgotten place, aren't you? Right. Anyone else on the minutes? I can't see anybody. Are we happy to receive them? Delegated decisions, are we okay with those? Pages 93 to 94. Agreed. Motions. Motion number 1. Councillor Ruffhead.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move the following. With the Constitution of Northumberland County Council having last been reviewed and adopted on the 1st of October 2014, it is therefore proposed that Council establishes a cross-party task and finish working group to give members the opportunity to discuss and facilitate the process of updating our authority's Constitution. Any draft updated Constitution authored by the aforementioned cross-party task and finish working group will be brought back to Council for consideration and adoption.
Councillor Jackson indicated, then I've got Councillor Davey.
Yes, Chair, I'm very happy to second it. It is timely that we do review the Constitution and we should do it on a cross-party basis. I'm happy to second the motion.
Councillor Davey.
Yes, Chair. I'm not happy with this motion, Chair. The reason being is that we had expert advice from the LGA a few years ago, and this council, and I've checked back on the vote, and it was a unanimous vote. This council agreed to give the changes of the Constitution to the monitoring officer who would report on those changes. Some of the reasons that were given at that time were the fact that there was going to be major changes to the local government pension fund, and those changes would have to be absorbed into the constitution of the council. And I'd like to say, in praise of Mr Henry, he's regularly reported to the council so that it could agree those changes on an ongoing, on a regular and ongoing basis. The only thing I would say in support of something that Councillor Roughhead's got within his motion is it probably does need an administrative view, because it still has things in the written policy that's online, the written constitution, such as referrals to the policy board. And we haven't had a policy board for a while. But as for the updates, and a task and finish working group may change the policies of that constitution and make them adverse to some of the groups that actually need them, not the council, such as the pension fund, such as the monitoring officer himself. So we need to be very careful, and I think that we should leave it the way it is and just have some admin support, get the spellings right, spelling checks right, and the verse right.
Well, it's been proposed and seconded. You obviously speaking against it. We used to have a constitution working group, but that went a fair while ago. And we'll open this up for debate. The motion is in front of you. So, anybody want to speak? Councillor Jackson?
I think we've probably all got a fair view on it. I was just taking a break on it, given the state of the meeting. We have...
Microphone.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think we've been in a long meeting. We've all got our views on this. It's quite clear that we need to review the Constitution in a timely matter, and there is no conception that it is designed to be pretty light touch and takes advice from our senior monitoring officer and any other legal advice that we want. So it's not going to be heavy-handed, but I do want it to be cross-party. And like I say, just get everything on a regular and sound footing, because it's time that we did that. As members, it's actually partly our responsibility. The Constitution comes from all 67 members. It doesn't actually come from anywhere else. So I'm happy just to propose that we go to the vote and get on with it. Thank you.
Well, I've got two speakers. I'll take them. Councillor Dungworth.
Thank you. I'm glad we finally got onto the business of this council meeting, and maybe if this group, as it obviously will goes ahead, it can look at how we conduct council meetings so that we get on to business in a timely manner. I don't see the need for a cross-party working group. I think it's been explained that we were advised in the past that it wasn't necessary, and the way to deal with it was through exception reporting and to deal with things as and when we needed to do so. We know that our officers are under pressure. They're doing more and more roles with fewer and fewer of them. This is another thing that, quite frankly, I don't feel officers of the county need to do, nor members of the county need to do on a regular basis. I think we're covered already with that, and actually we should be focusing outwards rather than inwards.
Okay, pass it along to Councillor Dale.
Can I just ask you, before we go this far, because I agree with what you said, actually, Councillor Dungworth, but what big changes are there being prescribed by the local government acts? Any local government acts? Because all the Constitution, I did the Constitution in 2008, and all the way through, with, I can't remember, Councillor, well, he's not here any longer, so anyway, all the way through, and it was all built on local government act. So I don't know what big changes have been made, or are we just asking for tweaks? And if it is just tweaks, can I just recommend exactly that we don't want to spend time, but if it is big changes through the Local Government Act, then we should look at it.
It says task and finish working group, so I'll take it is that. Any other speakers? I'm not going to yes, go on, Councillor Hill, and I'll move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just... what Councillor Roughhead is proposing is to review the Constitution. If you review something, you might say no changes, a few major ones. I'm a little bit suspicious, and actually hearing these comments makes me think, yeah, let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at all the detail, because the problem with things like this is it's a very long document. There's lots of things heard in the detail, and I think it's just a crazy suggestion that we shouldn't review something, and it makes me think, yes, we absolutely should review it with input from obviously a dedicated working group with the monitoring officer, and everyone could contribute. So I absolutely support this.
Councillor Roughhead, do you want to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't really going to go down this angle because I didn't really want to bring this up in this meeting. I thought this might have been a motion that all members supported, but clearly not. This Constitution is it's been operational and workable, and I appreciate the work that Mr. Henry's done on it, and I think he's a very good officer in terms of helping us with the legal advice, and I would suggest that he would be our officer for the working group to go over this constitution. But there's some like blatant errors, and obviously Councillor Davey mentioned it as well, that we'll reference a policy board instead of a cabinet, things like that. But then...
Sorry, Councillor Raphael. The problem with the misnaming of the policy board stroke cabinet is that we have updated it, we have an electronic version of it.
But it's not been an all-member review. That was just an amendment to, I think that was November or October last year, wasn't it?
November of last year, that's right.
I'm suggesting an all-member review because it's a living document. It's healthy practice to review this. If you sort of speak to Stephen Rickett at NALC, he'll suggest that town and parish councils regulate... Can I finish my point, Chair, please?
I want to get to the vote.
Basically, there's a poster out there that basically says this council supports equalities and everything and diversity. And then within this constitution, you could argue that we're being discriminatory as a local authority to staff and members who might identify anything other than he or she. The language is antiquated, and it just shows that Northumberland has been controlled by dinosaurs for decades. So
right.
Let's move. We'll go to the vote.
Let's move the vote. All those in favour?
Can I ask it to be a named vote as well?
You need a fifth of the members, so...
Can I ask for that?
You can propose it.
Yeah, I'll propose that.
Is it going to be seconded?
Yes, second.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Hill. Those in favour of a name vote? Okay. Where was that town? Right, all those in favour of the motion, please show. Right, can you count?
Thank you.
And those against? Abstentions.
35 for, 20 against, and 1 abstention.
35 for, 25 against, and 1 abstention. So the motion is carried. Motion number 2. Who's this one? Councillor Ruffhead.
Thank you, Chair. I feel like the council is probably going to be sick of Berwick by the time I'm finished today, so
Where?
I'll just get straight onto it. My second motion, with the ongoing behind-the-scenes development of the emerging Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal for the area covering Northumberland County Council, Scottish Borders Council, Cumbria County Council, Carlisle City Council and Dumfries and Galloway Council, it is therefore proposed that 1. Council establishes a cross-party working group, those favourite words that members don't like, for Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal comparable to that of this authority's cross-party working group on Newcastle, North Tyneside, Northumberland County devolution with terms of reference and membership to be later agreed. 1. That Council write to Her Majesty's Government, namely the First Lord of the Treasury, the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, and the Secretary of State for Scotland to formally request that Government create and appoint a Minister for Borderlands. It is envisaged that, should Government agree, a Minister for Borderlands would A. Be the 5 councils, I won't name them again, principal contact with the United Kingdom Government pertaining to Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal issues, be of a Parliamentary Under Secretary of State rank and work across all government departments, principally the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government in Scotland Office. C. Work and engage with councils, communities and stakeholders across the Borders region. And D. Promote the Borderlands agenda within both central government and Parliament. And I would also suggest that Council write to our MPs, requesting that as a means of promoting our county and the wider Borderlands region within Westminster, they work collaboratively with each other, with other MPs representing constituencies in Scottish Borders, Cumbria and Dumfries and Galloway Authority to create an all-party parliamentary group for Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal. And I'll reserve the right to speak later on.
Well, is this seconded? Councillor Seymour?
Yes, I'm happy to second this cross-party working group for the Borderlands Exclusive Growth.
Right.
Deal.
Councillor Davey?
Yes, Chair, we support this. We would be very, very happy to see a new Secretary of State for the 10% of the area of the whole of the UK that this initiative covers. We think it's a great initiative. All of the councils have similar problems, similar businesses, similar natures, and we think if we can drive it forward, it'll be a very, very good thing for this county as well. So we're supporting this. It's a pity Councillor Ruffhead hadn't put this one first. He might have changed his mind about the last one. But it's a great thing. I don't suppose we'll ever get a Secretary of State, but let us try, particularly when the Tories are now going to have to pay for the paperwork to try to get it there.
So that's a thumbs up from you, is it? Right, does anybody else want to speak on this one? Councillor Reid. This is...
Yeah, well, it's not these three motions per se that I'm against. It's when motions come to this council. I've been in this chamber now 10 years as leader and opposition and whipping boy, and nothing has ever come out of any motion that has ever been passed by this council. We've written to more MPs than we've all had hot dinners. Have we ever had a reply? Has anybody ever responded and said, oh, that's a great idea? We've already had an example where one member has had to bang on and bang on and bang on about a working group that the leader of the council and the leader of the opposition both asked for, and it still hasn't happened. Nothing ever comes of any motion that is ever put to this council. So I'm not voting for it, and I'm not abstaining either. I'm just not voting.
Are you going to put that? Are you going to put that in a motion, are you? Right, I can't see anybody else want to speak. Can we, Councillor Ruffhead?
Yeah, just to sum up, I would just like to thank the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Davey, for his support on this, and likewise just agree with his sentiment. It's worthwhile us asking up here in the north of Forgotten Land and working with our colleagues, the south forgotten part of Scotland, to try and sort of bat for this region and actually get somebody in Parliament and government that will actually promote our agenda. And it'll be interesting to see who the shadow parliamentary under Secretary of State for Borderlands is as well.
Okay, all those in favour of this motion, please show. That's all right. All those against? And those who... Is there an abstention? It's not an abstention. I've got two abstentions. And a no vote. I understand why. I give you permission to go. Right, that is carried. Motion number 3. Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure this will be equally uncontroversial. The motion, actually I do have a slight amendment to the printed version, which I'll read out. So the motion is as follows. This council employs a chief legal officer whose main responsibility is to provide legal and procedural advice and guidance to the council and to members of the council. Whilst it is the prerogative of any member to disagree with any legal advice given by the chief legal officer in this regard and to obtain independent advice of their own, this council moves that any such independent legal advice relied upon by any member of the council in the proceedings or business of this council, and this is the new bit, must be disclosed in full to the legal services manager with reasonable notice, then back to the original wording, prior to the meeting on which it is intended to be relied upon, and shall include a declaration of the names of the qualified individual or firm providing such advice and full details of who has paid for or commissioned such advice.
Is that seconded? Yes, Councillor Oliver.
And I reserve the right to speak later.
I'd like to second this motion. I think over the last 15 months I've sat here and heard probably on 4 or 5 occasions members refer to legal advice without being willing to share the detail of that legal advice, the nature of that legal advice, or who paid for that legal advice. And I think this is a really good motion to improve the democracy and the processes of this council.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Yes, Chair. Because Councillor Bourne has varied his motion, we would like to ask him to withdraw it today and bring it back. We would like to have a look at that.
Chairman, if I could just advise the meeting, I don't know if I need a microphone. Is that legal advice? It's procedural advice. Yes, just in relation to the alteration of the motion which you received notice of, the Council's Rules of Procedure. I don't think this is out of date, but I'm sure it's not.
The cross-party working group will look
Rule
at it.
12.7 of the Council's Rules of Procedure had an alteration of motion. A member may alter a motion of which he or she has given notice with the consent of the meeting. The meeting's consent will be signified without discussion. So that, in effect, Chairman just invites a vote to be taken if there is some dissent about that alteration, which there appears to be.
We've had no notification, Chair. That's the
Chairman, I hear what Councillor Davey has said, but that the Rules of Procedure do appear to allow an alteration, and it is a very small, minor alteration, if I understood Councillor Bond.
No, it's not. It's not.
Councillor Bourne, and then I'll take Councillor Davies. He's replying to...
I'm a little bit confused because I have not sat in this chamber as long as Councillor Reid and heard as many motions as he has. But the amount of times a motion that comes into this chamber is amended in this chamber as part of the debate of a motion is virtually every one that's ever been passed. So the idea that we can't amend a motion on the floor of this this chamber, I'm getting above myself there.
Above your station there.
I'll not comment on that one.
It is frankly bizarre. Now, following the procedural advice of the Legal Services Manager, I would therefore request the consent of the meeting to add this minor amendment. If there's any dissent, I think a vote is then required, then we move on. Is that right?
Yeah. That's what I've been...
Well, I'd like to amend the motion then, Chair. I'd like to amend the altered motion once it's
Hang on,
accepted.
I've got to take legal advice. Can you...
I think it's only right and proper that the alteration of the motion by Councillor Bond should be taken first.
Right. Those in favour of Councillor Bourne's alteration of the motion so it can proceed, please show.
Does Councillor Bond want to read it out again?
Read it out.
I'll read out the different bit, not all of it. The additional bit is after council in the proceedings or business of this council in the second paragraph, and the new wording is must be disclosed in full to the Legal Services Manager with reasonable notice, and then it continues prior to the meeting.
Right. All those in favour of proceeding with the amendment or the alteration, please show.
Chairman.
36. Those against?
Chairman.
21. Abstentions?
None.
He's not here then. Right, it's been carried 36 votes to 21. That we
May I amend the motion?
you can put down an amendment, am I correct in that? Right.
I'd like to amend the amended motion and remove the word independent and add after Legal Services Officer who must keep the confidentiality of the person who has gone to give the statement. I haven't got the words quite correct there, but the Legal Service Officer must retain confidentiality is what I'm proposing. Let's see what it looks like. I'm sure he'll come up with another couple of words.
And
the reason, can I give the reason for my amendment, Chair?
What?
Because I believe that the amendment may, the way that it's worded, if that information was given out, could be a problem with trade, with the solicitor's trade. I'll just give an example. I go to Councillor Bourne for legal advice. He gives me legal advice. It's passed on here at a meeting. It's given out after that meeting. Therefore, all of his mates at the lodge on a Wednesday will be saying, do not deal with Councillor Bourne again because he's given advice to the Labour Party. It could work the other way. You could be giving advice to the Tory Party, and down at the Workman's Club people might say that to the folk. But it's not the same effect. So it could be classed as a restrictive trade practice if that information was given out outside of court.
Right, can we have the Councillor Pidcock? Yeah, I presume you're going to second the motion, Grant's amendment.
I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Well, don't, then we'll get.
This is stupid. This is typified the whole of this afternoon. I don't think I need a microphone. It's typified the whole of this afternoon. Councillor Reid said he's had all these motions and none of them have ever done anything. This is an example par excellence of a motion that means utterly and completely nothing. And the fact that it's been brought by a solicitor says to me, don't you ever go to that person and ask for his legal help. Supposing now, somebody goes to the Citizens Advice Bureau and gets legal advice. There's no payments for Citizens Advice Bureau workers, no excessive charges at Citizens Advice Bureau work, no smug smile on the faces at the Citizens Advice Bureau, nothing like that at all. It's free, it's independent, it's confidential. What this is about, this is a vexatious motion. It's brought out of malice and brought out of just trying to score points. And that's all it is, and it means utterly and absolutely nothing. And if you want to amend it, amend it. If you want to stick it up wherever, do that. But I think this is bringing the council into disrepute.
Now, are you speaking on Grant's amendment?
Well, I'm sorry.
Well, I've got to run.
I'm sorry. I just poured my soul out there, and all I've got is a chair trying to make an idiot of me. Now, I don't like that.
Bernard, I have not done that. I am asking a procedural question, because Grant's motion, in my mind, so far has not been, his amendment to the motion has not been seconded. And I need clarity. Right, thank you, Councillor. Right, it's been put and seconded. Can we take a vote on Councillor Hebbel?
Thanks, Chair. Can I just ask for some clarification on what this motion would mean? So, for example, the legal advice that was provided on the withdrawal of the core strategy, which was refused, would that be then allowed under this?
Councillor Hebbel, I'm taking legal advice here.
Chairman, the amendment has been proposed and seconded. The debate should now be confined to the amendment. I think Councillor Hebbel's asking a question which may be more relevant to the original motion, and that might be relevant to ask if the motion is either continued as it is or as amended by Councillor Hebbel.
Right.
You withdrew that, you didn't let us have that information, that legal advice, and now you're saying we should have it, or any other member should provide it.
I've got Councillor Dickinson. He's not listening. Councillor Dickinson? Yes.
Thank you very much. This seems pretty straightforward to me. Councillor Bourne has put a motion forward. There's been an amendment made which simply inserts the words confidentiality around the information provided to the legal officer. Now, if this motion is intended in no other way than to double check what members are referring to and for that information to be held, then I can't see any reason why anybody would object to those words being inserted.
Well, Councillor Davies' motion has been proposed and seconded. An amendment to the motion. I'm going to put it to the vote. Over Councillor Bourne.
correct me if I'm wrong, I think the procedure is as the person that put forward the motion, I get a chance whether or not to accept his amendment before it goes to vote. Is that right? Well, I just want to say, no, I don't accept it, and it's for a very simple reason. And maybe this does need a bit of explanation. Now, what we're saying in this motion is that any legal advice that you are intending to use in the proceedings of this council needs to be disclosed. This does not affect legal privilege. It does not affect your right to take independent advice in private and in confidence. What it is seeking to prevent, and it is not vexatious, this is actually a very, very serious point. We do have members in the past saying in this chamber and in committees that they have legal advice contradicting officers. Well, that's fine. You can do that, but you can't just say that. You've got to provide evidence of that. And if you're going to second guess our professional officers and say you disagree with them, that's fine. You say, I personally don't agree with you, that's fine. But if you say, I have the legal authority of a qualified legal opinion that you are wrong, well, okay, well, you must declare that. You must show that. And moving on to the second point about who provided the advice and who paid for it, I think this is a very important add-on to the disclosures we all make about connected parties when we're involved in council business. Because if a member in the future decides to use such legal advice on an issue which affects a third party, and that third party has paid for that advice, then it's very important in proceedings of council that we, the members who are listening to that member making that recommendation, know that. Otherwise, we could have a situation where, and this would never happen in this council, but as a general principle, where somebody is being provided by legal advice paid for by somebody with a third party with a direct interest in the outcome of a council decision or proceeding, and then not declaring it, and would be able to then therefore circumvent the declarations of interest. That is what this motion does. So the idea that you can still, I think what Councillor Davies' amendment would seek to do is that you can still say outside school, I've got legal advice, but you're still not allowed to see it, and it's still got to say private. No. If you're relying on advice, then it needs to be made public. If you're not relying on it, or you don't want to rely on it in public, then you don't have to disclose it. No one's forcing you to disclose confidential, privileged legal information. But if you are going to use it to try and trump our officers, then we have a right to see it.
Right, let's move to the vote on the amendment. Those in favour of Grant's amendment, Councillor Davies' amendment, please show.
Chairman.
Those against?
I'll make that 31, Chairman.
Abstentions?
Not voting is a different thing.
There was somebody else. Right. The motion, the amendment has fallen, so we go back to the motion, the original motion, with the insert that you have put forward. Is there any further debate on that?
Should we just move to the vote?
Yes. Let's move to those in favour of Councillor Bourne's motion. I've given him the opportunity.
Chairman.
34. Those against?
Make that 20, Chairman.
20. Abstentions?
No abstentions.
Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you. Let's move on. I am nearing the 6 o'clock, so let's see if we can do it. we'll have to suspend or whatever. Item 12. Reports of the Executive Director of Finance and Deputy Chief Executive. Amendments to the capital programme. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you very much, members. It's all there for you in writing. I don't think I need to say anything.
Okay. Are we agreed? Item 2. Annual Treasury Management Year-End Report. Councillor Oliver.
I think, given the time, I'll take a similar approach to Councillor Sanderson. Thank you.
Are we agreed? Item 13, exclusion of the press and the public. Council, can we pass that? Thank you for your attendance, members of the press and the public. I hope you've enjoyed this afternoon. No.